Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Resistance United family. We are on the 99%, and we have Lloyd the Jongh, and tonight he's going to give us all the necessary evidence in a very orderly way to deal with all the confusion and the challenging that we are constantly dealing with. So he will provide all the arguments and the evidence in an orderly way. And thank you very much for doing that, Lloyd. You have our absolute respect and appreciation. So if everything is ready on your side, you are welcome to begin. And he disappeared. I cannot see you, Lloyd.
I hit the wrong button. I should be back now. Okay, so screen two, I needed to change the setting and hit the wrong button.
Yeah, but I
Okay,
cannot
so
see
now
you.
I'm sharing my screen and I should be visible to all. So good
We
evening,
cannot see you,
everyone.
Lloyd. I cannot see
My
your beautiful face.
my
Can
camera
I get
must be playing it.
can I get a copy of this image afterwards, please?
Okay, my camera is back on. It should be functioning. There, I see myself in the camera.
Yeah, now we can see you. Thank you.
Okay.
So go ahead, please.
So good evening, everyone. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. As you know, for the last few weeks, for several weeks, I've been doing talks on Islam. I've been utilizing what is known as the books of fiqh. We would all typically know this as the books of the Islamic law, the Islamic sacred law known as the Sharia. I have provided at all times all of my links, my references, all my sources so that everyone could check them for themselves. So, yeah, what I would like for you to do is please download the sources that I've made available. I'm going to share this here. Okay, so what I have here is the list of the sources that I'm going to be using tonight. Right, this has been pinned into the chat. So this document, I've provided a PDF with all the show slides, which you can download from Dropbox, and you can follow along if you want or watch it later. This is the main Islamic law resource that I will be utilizing. This is the most popular one in the world today. I'm going to be using the Brill Encyclopedia of Islam. This is the index, volume 13. It acts like an index to the encyclopedia, but also has a dictionary, and I'm going to be using some other of these encyclopedia entries. And then I will be utilizing my OneNote link. This link has also been shared to everyone, and you will be able to follow along from here because I'll be utilizing one of my tabs here to go through the discussion from Islam's greatest scholar after Muhammad to go through the actual doctrine on lying. So briefly, I am Lloyd de Jongh. I'm South African. I live in Poland. I spent nearly 11 years living in the Middle East. I spent more than half of that time working in national security. I worked to protect national borders, national critical infrastructure, people, and property from sabotage, malicious damage, as well as uh, from attacks by groups like Al Qaeda, ISIS, and potentially the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. So, one known as Quds Force, I believe. So, I spent a lot of time assessing what could be done to protect Middle Eastern citizens and assets from attack. So I've traveled extensively throughout the Middle East. I've been to a number of places. I've had a wonderful time there. I did very well in terms of my career. So it should be noted that I do not hate Muslims, and this question has come up often, and I need to reiterate. This is not about hating Muslims. This is simply about discussing the facts of Islam. Unfortunately, when you discuss religion, people's identity is bound up with it. And unfortunately, people then feel slighted because you're discussing their ideology and their doctrine. However, there's a lot of confusion because Islam has a very detailed doctrine of deceit and lying. Just like Eskimos have, I don't know, 20 or 30 or 50 words for snow, Islam has a number of words for lying and deception within its lexicon and within its doctrines. And we will be discussing some of that tonight. So my aim is not to offend people, but unfortunately, because it's controversial, there will be offense taken, and it's not that offense is sought to be given. Okay, so any questions before we begin? Any further comments before we begin, Harry?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing some different, I'm going to be going through various different sources. We're going to start with this PowerPoint slide. It's same as the PDFs that you have. All right, so the subtitle is Deceit, Ambiguity, Misdirection, and Lying as Integral Orthodox Teachings in Islam. Right, so first, to lay the groundwork, I'm going to show you why I'm utilizing this scholar and the works of this particular scholar. There are very good reasons for this. So I'm going to be referring to this book called the Ihya Ulum al-Din by Imam al-Ghazali. This man is regarded as the #1 scholar in Islam after Muhammad himself. He's Islam's greatest scholar in history, right? And we will be utilizing volume 3. I grabbed volume 2 because it had this review in it, but we'll be utilizing volume 3. It is available at archive.org. You can find volume 3. So we'll get to that as we go. So very briefly, The Revival of the Religious Sciences by Imam Ghazali can be described as a book that will never die. It contains a vital cognitive force that time cannot obliterate. As the Imam discusses Islamic rulings, beliefs, and character, blah, 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 blah. What distinguishes this book from others is its strong spiritual influence on the reader, strong spiritual influence, right? It is a comprehensive encyclopedia for all of a Muslim's religious affairs, including beliefs, acts of worship, dealings, and character, as well as for individual and societal welfare. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali is a towering figure in Islam. His enormous influence can be summarized as the one who teaches only to help man to live a life in accordance with the sacred law. This is very important because the sacred law has morality that is inverted from what we would consider Western and Christian moral dealings. And he says here that he will help you understand the deeper meaning of the sacred law, and he has helped generations towards this end until today. Right, let's continue. This is a Wikipedia entry, Revival of the Religious Sciences. It is a classic introduction to the pious Muslims, the religious Muslims' way to Allah. It spans 40 volumes and deals with the principles and practices of Islam. And interestingly, it also shows you how to attain the higher stages of Sufism. We've discussed this extensively in the past. I'm not going to do that right now unless there's a question later. But let's have a look at the influence of this book and this scholar. This particular scholar states, it is perhaps the most influential work on ethics in Islamic history. So in terms of its ethical influence, it is the most influential ethical work in Islamic history. It became the most frequently read Islamic book after the Quran and the Hadith. So you will find this comment made ad nauseum when you browse the internet. So it is the most frequently read Islamic book after Quran and Hadith. It brings Orthodox, Sunni theology and Sufi mysticism together. Okay, fine and well. And this book was well received by Islamic scholars. Nawawi states, were the books of Islam all to be lost, excepting only the Ihya, it would suffice to replace them all. So high praise indeed from Imam Nawawi. For another review from Mecca Books, the Muqtasar is an abridgment of the Ihya Ulum al-Din. It is packed with boundless wisdom by the great 11th century scholar Imam Ghazali. It is probably the most influential work in Islam after the Quran and Hadith. The Ihya has been studied and taught all over the world. And again, from Sifatu Safwa, it tells us it is the most famous work of Imam Ghazali and one of the most famous and widespread Islamic books. And of course, let's take a quote. And it says, of course, a lie is permitted. And as Ghazali teaches us, of course, a lie is permitted. And when is it permitted? Well, amongst others, if the truth would lead to another prohibited thing that is worse than lying, then it is permissible. Now, I should note that within Christianity, within Western moral law, one generally has the concept of right and wrong. Islam doesn't really have the same idea. It doesn't have the concept of right and wrong. What it has is the law of legal and illegal, haram and halal. So you've got what is legal and what is illegal, not right and wrong, what is lawful and therefore permissible, and what is not lawful and what is not permissible. However, every single law, every single moral ruling, every single fatwa, every single tenet of Islam can be broken, can be violated lawfully. It is quite legal to do so. So, again, to state, a lie is permitted, because if telling the truth would lead to another thing that is prohibited, then and that might be worse than lying, then it is permissible to lie. And this is from the 40 Principles of the Religion, an adapted summary of the Ihya Ulum al-Din. Now, let's have a brief look at some of the Islamic doctrines of deceit. Now, everyone is familiar with the term takiyya, okay? Takiyya is where they would want to focus your attention because they can justify it. You will often hear the story that says, well, what if someone was threatening to kill you? Wouldn't you then tell a lie to defend yourself? Or what if someone was going to hurt your friends or your family? Wouldn't you tell a lie to protect them? And this is certainly one example that is actually routinely used by the imams to teach Muslims, well, look, here's an application of takiyya. But like I said, there's more than one kind of deception in Islam. There's numerous kinds. Okay, there are several different kinds of deception. That's only one, and that's one circumstance. That's one isolated case, a very rare case for that matter. Of course, the Shia developed takiyya because they were being killed by the Sunnis. Once they discovered that they were Shia, the Sunnis might well have killed them or harmed them, so therefore they had to learn to hide their identity. The same form of lying is called mudarat in Sunni Islam. So while they might say, well, takiyya Shia, well, yes, it's called mudarat in Sunni Islam. Sunni, don't forget, comes from the Sunnah, Muslims of the Sunnah. Now, when you quote the Sunnah, as we did on the last show that I did, Muslims were denying the Sunnah. It's interesting that Sunni Muslims deny the Sunnah when Sunni comes from Muslims of the Sunnah, right? Which is the Hadith and the Sirah, the biographies of Muhammad, actually the Gospels of Muhammad. So notice that one of its definitions is calculated deceit for the purposes of spreading Islam. We're going to dig into this much deeper later. Kitman, deceit by silence or omission. And interestingly, within Judaic law, if you read the Talmud, there's the statement that a half-truth is a whole lie, right? Oddly enough, the rabbis state that a half-truth is a whole lie, whereas Islam has an entire methodology for telling half-truths. So lying by omission, an example would be when Muslim apologists quote only a fragment of the verse 532, that if anyone kills, it shall be as if he had killed all mankind, while neglecting to mention that the rest of the verse and the next mandate murder in undefined cases of corruption, technically meaning temptation away from Islam, and mischief, again, temptation away from Islam. Also, one should note that with 532, the next verse is about what we would call cruel and unusual punishment, which includes chopping off the hands and the feet from opposite sides, crucifixion, and so on. Now, also, the verse 532 states in the beginning very explicitly, it was ordained for the Jews. It was ordained for the people of Israel. So this is a law that Allah stated was specifically applied to the people of Israel. It comes from the Talmud Sanhedrin. Now, the next verse, 533, refers to the Muslims, and it says there that they need to, as I said, cruel and unusually punish people for violations, which includes trying to lead them away from Islam. Now, of course, Islam has an entire doctrine dedicated to taking people away from their religions, which is called dawah. Note also that the Quran says that 532 was stated by Allah. Quran 532 is taken, as I've shown in the past, in detail on this channel, on the show, from the Talmud. It's the words of rabbis. It is not the word of God directly. So the Quran, unfortunately, thinks that the words of the rabbis and the Talmud is the word of God, is the eternal word of God's own spoken word. So yeah, so much for the Quran. So tawriya, deceit by ambiguity, lying by omission, tasir, deceit through facilitation, not having to observe all the tenets of the Sharia. Now, back to this idea of tawriya, deceit by ambiguity. Someone comes to visit your mom and you're 10 years old and your mom doesn't want to see that person and she's hiding in the back. She's in the garden, in the kitchen, in the attic, whatever. She's hiding in the basement, whatever the case might be. And this person says, is your mom here? And you say, no, she's not. Because you are interpreting that as, is your mom right here in front of us right now? And the answer to that is, no, she's in the bedroom. She's a few meters away, hiding under the sofa, whatever. But you are now lying using this tawriya, this deceit by ambiguity. Right? So this is how they teach this. You have tasir and darura, deceit. So deceit through facilitation and darura, necessity, right? These are often termed ease and necessity. In other words, you can violate any of the tenets of Islam if there's a perceived need. And I would call it a subjective perceived need. Then they speak of, so you can engage in something that is haram or forbidden. Then there's muruna, blending in, the temporary suspension of sharia, so that, for instance, migrants be moderate. And then, of course, the granddaddy of deception in Islam, the granddaddy of deceit within Islam, is called hiyal. This is something you've never heard of. Okay, it means it's legal trickery, right? Contortion, contrivance, device, subterfuge, legalistic trickery in Islamic jurisprudence. It allows the breaking of oaths, promises, contracts, and any and all Sharia law. So I'll continue. Let's talk about hiyal. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on all these later, but let's talk about hiyal because this is the most important one. I'm going to utilize the Brill Encyclopedia of Islam, and when we look up hiyal, it falls under tactics, military tactics. And of course, here's the word harb next to tactics, and harb means war. So it's a tactic of war. So it's a method of warfare, propaganda, and deceit, subversion to defeat an enemy used during wartime. Well, since it's a standard practice, we can then infer, as we have shown in past shows, Islam is permanently at war with the rest of the world. Now, in military science, the plural form of adab is a synonym of hiyal, stratagems in war. So hiyal, legalistic trickery, is also a stratagem in war, a method of defeating an enemy in war. Adab is also important. Now, adab al-jadal, in theology and law, a method of debating in which were discussed questions that were controversial. It was not a matter of finding the truth, but of convincing the opponent. Now, very interesting. So Muslims always say, well, let's have debate. Oh, let's debate. Because they have a very specific methodology of utilizing debate, which utilizes rhetoric in a deceitful, sophist manner. So it is rhetoric applied in a manner that uses sophistry to win. The whole purpose is to win. We'll be discussing this. Let's look at the hiyal again within the Encyclopedia of Islam. They speak here of artifices, devices, expedients, stratagems, the means of evading a thing. Many of you may well have had discussions or potentially even debates with Muslims, and they will never answer the question. They'll evade, they'll deflect, they'll move to something else, because hiyal is the skill of evading something and moving to something else, right? These are tricks of beggars. And in law, hiyal is circumventions of the law. To circumvent the law is applied to as stating to break the law, to get around the law. So technically, you are following the letter of the law, but you're breaking the spirit of the law, or you're just violating the law outright. These are legal devices, the use of legal means for extra-legal ends. Extra-legal means illegal ends, utilizing legal means to do illegal things. Now, these notes here, 123b, 3159b, and 3511a, these are references in volume 1 of the encyclopedia. This here will be 3510b. So this tells you where you can get more information on these concepts within the other copies of the Encyclopedia of Islam. Now notice in military science, with the synonym maqaid, and adab is a technical term for stratagems of war. Now, adab is their method of debate, but it's also their stratagems of war. So again, it is warfare for them. It is considered, and all is fair in love and war. Now, I need to mention something called jihad bil lisan, jihad of the tongue, also known as jihad by the word or jihad al-kalam, which might also be spelled with K, jihad al-kalam. Let's have a look at a longer treatise within the encyclopedia. Adab al-jadal became the technical term for the method of debating, not only in theology, right? And in jurisprudence, in which we discussed questions that were controversial between schools of law, but also in matters of jurisprudence and theology with non-Muslims. So it became their standard. So it was no more a matter of finding the truth, but of convincing the opponent. Again, we have this knowledge that the whole point of their method of debate is to convince, not to find truth. It's designed to win. They use lovely euphemisms to say what they want to say. So notice that adab also means sunnah, because Arabic words have multiple meanings. Sunnah, Sunnis follow the sunnah. It is the way. So it is the way of war. It is the way of Muhammad. It is the way that things are done. So this is the standard practice. Okay, you can look at Encyclopedia of Islam, volume 13 again for this. Now, let's have a look at Ilm al-Badi.
Lloyd,
Now, this full, yes, I'll pause.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. I just want to
Sure.
bring to your attention that your friend Adam is here.
Adam, welcome. Hey, man, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Hi, brother. Thank you so very much. And so nice to
Thanks.
be here.
You're early.
Welcome.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Okay. So, Adam, if you want to jump in, just raise your hand, and of course you can jump in. But yeah, so I'll leave it up
He
to you. But
doesn't
so let
have
me
to raise.
continue.
He doesn't have to raise
Oh,
his hand. We unmuted him so he can just join in whenever he feels like.
excellent. Thank you. So, Ilm al-Badi, right? Now, again, this is the Encyclopedia of Islam. It is the gold standard. It is the most respected and authoritative of the academic encyclopedias that tries to explain the history, the etymology, the knowledge, the geography, etc. of all things Islam. It is an incredibly important resource, a huge, monumental resource spanning over a century of work. So the Ilm al-Badi, it's the branch of rhetorical science, which deals with the beautification of literary style, with the artifices, and this word's important, artifices of the ornamentation and embellishments of speech. Right. So we will continue. We will come back to all of these and we'll tie this up neatly. So let's talk about the sunnah of war, hiyal, plural of hila, artifice, device, expedient, strategy, a means of evading a thing. Hiyal is a technical term for stratagems in war. Synonyms, adab, as well, their form of debate. The use of stratagems in war is justified by a saying attributed to the Prophet, which is an old proverb, al-harb khudda, war is deceit. Just on that point, it should be noted that people commonly state that, oh, Mossad says that by way of deception you will do war. Well, this is a very common practice. Sun Tzu said it as well. Is Sun Tzu evil? But Muhammad said it a long, long, long time before Mossad did. War is deceit. In fact, if you look at some older Quran versions, the earliest translations, it states that war is a game of deceit. So the term occurs in the titles of works on the military art as well as in their text. Okay, so let's continue. Now, oath breaking, breaking your oath for fun and profit. Let's learn a bit more about hiyal, how hiyal are used. Now, the first hiyal were developed as early as the late 8th century, but within the early 9th century, about 805, the first texts, which contained hundreds of examples of how to speak in a way that was deceptive, were developed and published. Right? So the first and simplest hiyal were presumably thought out by interested parties who felt the need. In other words, first, the merchants in particular. But it was beyond them to invent and apply the more complicated ones. So they had to have recourse to specialists in religious law. And the specialists in religious law, the imams, did not hesitate to supply the need for methods to deceive people using deceptive rhetorical language. A special branch of EL is concerned with the evasion of obligations undertaken under oath. So Islam explicitly teaches how to break oaths, promises, contracts, and all laws. And we're going to tie this into the Sunnah as well. Now, oddly enough, when you go through the Encyclopedia of Islam, it brings up Machiavelli. So they speak of here these 9 degrees. Now, 9 degrees of Sufism, interesting. Degrees of Freemasonry, who knows? We'll get into that another time. But notice they speak here of Machiavellian tricks called hiyal to recruit new adherents and detach them from their religion. So understand, Islam, you're supposed to be crucified, have your hands and feet cut off from opposite side, killed or banished if you try to detach a Muslim from his religion. But they've developed Machiavellian tricks called hiyal to recruit adherents and detach them from their religion. That means you. Interestingly, okay, now let's look at dawah. We all hear about dawah, Muslims doing dawah. We would consider it evangelism, and they might utilize the term, but it doesn't mean what we think it means. So they speak here of a former caliph. This is, I think, in the 10th century, is said to have commissioned disputants and controversialists, jadaliyun, to carry on a parallel campaign by means of the pen. Now, we spoke earlier of jihad al-lisan. We also have jihad of the pen, and these controversialists, and again, I will come as we go, I will show you exactly where this is important. But what you have is there were theological arguments with Muslims. There were also theological arguments with Christians, and of course, and other religious groups, and therefore they had to find ways to refute them, to defeat them. And so they developed dawah of the pen and dawah of the tongue to defeat these people utilizing these sophist arguments. Now, This comes from Encyclopedia of Islam, Volume 2, page 170 in the book. And if you're reading a PDF reader, it'll show up as page 184. Now, note, they wrote what's called eristic refutations, and we'll get into that. Now, propaganda within the Encyclopedia of Islam is called dawah. Notice propaganda, dawah. Dawah is propaganda, not evangelism. It comes up as propaganda. Now, notice dawah is a call or an invitation to Islam, of course. But notice it says here propaganda. In fact, it's also listed as pretension, to pretend. In other words, to deceive. So dawah is a method of deception. Let's look into more depth as to what it actually tells us. So dawaganda, let's look at the theocratic empire that dawah wants to build. They speak of the theocratic state based on monotheism, right? Islamic monotheism. And dawah has to attract the greatest possible number of people to this idea and then give power to their representatives, that would be the imams. And of course, they must utilize propaganda for this purpose. And propaganda for this purpose is called dawah. Right, so they must utilize propaganda. Now, I believe groups like the Nazis utilized warfare propaganda, the communists utilized propaganda. But of course, when Islam uses propaganda, they mean it in the nicest possible way, I'm sure, with no political connotations, because propaganda by dawah is not, I guess, one of the means of founding a new empire. Well, Holland does say that, yes, this propaganda, the dawah, is one of the means of founding a new empire. So they're not trying to convert you to Islam for the sake of showing you a new religious way. They want to build an empire and give power to their representatives. They speak of the Abbasid dawah, which was, strictly speaking, propaganda for the Prophet's family. Adam, do you want to say anything? Otherwise, you can jump in anytime. I'll just continue then.
Yes, brother, please carry on. You're doing an awesome job already. So please be my
Okay.
guest.
Thanks. Okay, so hiyal, yes. So now they speak here in the Machiavellian tricks, hiyal, to recruit new adherents and detach them from the religion. So these would be clever arguments to win over your loyalty and to detach you from your former beliefs, right? That's dawah, okay? But why do they say it's Machiavellian? Let's look at the word Machiavellian. It says here that Machiavellianism is one of the traits in the dark triad model. This I got from Wikipedia, along with psychopathy and narcissism. Harry, just from your perspective, would you consider that psychopathy and narcissism are positive traits that one wants to see in evangelism?
No, absolutely not. And Machiavelli also responsible for writing, for example, The Prince and other books, and he is demonstrating there his very heavy hand on how to control people and all this insanity we are dealing with even today. So,
right. So he wrote that to teach people how to manipulate others and gain power and control over them. Would that be correct?
yes, sir.
So, in other words, it is a political text, right? So Machiavellianism is used for political means. It is deception and control utilized for political means. Dawah is thus deception and control utilized for political means, as we saw, to build an Islamic empire, right? Empires are political. So in the field of personality psychology, Machiavellianism is a personality trait centered on manipulativeness, callousness, and interestingly, an indifference to morality. So one would think that a religion would not be indifferent to morality, but according to these associations that I'm coming up with here and with the evidence presented from within the Encyclopedia of Islam, it states that yes, it is indifferent to morality. Now, I want to bring up, this is a very short video. It is 60 seconds long, and it's going to talk about how dawah is utilized to deceive in terms of getting people to follow Islam. Now, before I continue, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to show you a few things. So first of all, if you click on the PDF link, which I've provided, you will come up with this here, as I've shown you. You will come up with all of these slides in a PDF format so you can follow along and you can download everything and utilize everything later at your leisure. Okay. Then also, I'm going to be using a couple of links from the tafsir. This is my channel, but I'm now going to play this video for you so that you guys can see. This is from memory.org, right? This is quoted by, rather, this is on a different channel, but it originally comes from memory. And let's see, once upon a time, there was a Muslim and his Jewish neighbor. And this is only 60 seconds long. We're going to play this now.
Lloyd,
I don't.
you're gonna
Your
have to
voice is not.
Lloyd.
Sorry?
Lloyd, you're gonna have to reshare your screen and click the little box that says share audio as well, buddy.
Share audio. Okay, fine. Let me do that then. My apologies.
But remember to change it back afterwards, otherwise we'll be hearing you twice.
Okay, let me stop
time
sharing. Let me share system audio. Okay, I'm going to do that now. So, well, actually, in this case, you don't actually have to hear the audio. You just need to read the text on the bottom, but I'll do this now again. And there you go. Let me just pause my screen again, stop sharing, and then I will.
Couldn't hear it anyway, Lloyd. You're all right, buddy.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I trust you were able to read the text.
Oh yes.
Right. So there you could see that they were finding it amusing how they deceived someone utilizing dawah. They lied to a Jewish man that he could drink alcohol after his conversion. And then when he converted by saying the Shahada, of course, suddenly they told him, well, if you leave Islam, we will kill you, and you cannot drink Islam, or you cannot drink in Islam. You're no longer allowed to touch alcohol, or we will punish you according to the Sharia law. So this is an example of an imam on television gloating over how they deceived someone. This is not ethical, this is not moral, and this tells us that there is no, at least it doesn't follow Western moral standards, and there is no attachment to what we would consider moral behavior. Is that clear? Any questions? Harry, your thoughts on that?
I can't ignore his very beautiful and nice smile. I think that's all I care about in this video. I see no problem here.
Okay.
Your
Understood.
sarcasm is better, Harry.
Yeah, I may add a few things over here because now I think it's the right time. Islam talks about jihad. The jihad, the meaning of jihad is struggle. Okay, so most of the people actually think that jihad just means fighting, but jihad means struggle. And Muhammad describes in multiple sunnah that there are three types of jihad. Jihad bil lisan, which means the jihad of the tongue. Jihad bil yaday or bil lisan, depending on which hadith you will see. Sorry, Bishamshir is like the sword or the hand, and jihad bin nafs, the struggle of your inner self or spirit. So when you are giving dawah, you are actually doing a jihad bil lisan to the people, with the people. And Muhammad said the war is deceit. You can just search on Google and you will get multiple links from Islam Web and etc., which will show you multiple ahadiths on this, that jihad is a is a deceit. And it says in Sahih Bukhari 3029 and Sahih Muslim 58 as well, that jihad is deceit. And in deceit, every kind of betrayal is acceptable. um, if I may be able to share my screen, I think.
Adam,
Uh,
Adam, maybe you can say a few words about your background, if you're okay with that.
yeah, sure. I'm a ex-Muslim, Sunni ex-Muslim. Uh, I come from a Sayyid family, which means that our lineage can be traced back according to the Shajra and Nasb of ours, to the lineage of Muhammad. I have been a very devout Muslim for almost 40 years of my life. Then I became an agnostic, and now I am a follower of Christ. Praise Lord for that. I am a follower of Christ for almost 2.5 years. That's the shortest possible way for myself to be explained who I am.
Thank you.
So yeah, this is the islamqa.info, fatwa number 10138. It says, yet despite this commandment of betrayal, Islam allows deception in war in order to attain victory. Al-Nawawi said, the scholars agreed that it is permissible to deceive the kuffar in war in any way possible. In any way possible.
What's the kuffar?
Kuffar are the people
Non-Muslim.
who are non-Muslims, who do kufr. Kufr
It's you.
simply comes in, yeah, all
Thank
of you. Yeah, kufr simply comes into play when you say that the one who has denied Allah and His Messenger. The simplest answer is the one who denies Allah and Messenger. He's a kafir, and the kafir comes from kufr. Kuffar is the plural of kafir. Okay, except if that would mean breaking the terms of treaty or trust, in which case it is not permissible. Once again, we will see that it is also permissible in those kind of things. So then it goes into giving you multiple hadiths where multiple times Muhammad had during his time as well, and later on rejected or deceived the people. So that's uh, that's the reality, guys. It's That's how it is, brother. And I don't even know how to
Wow.
unshare my screen. How do I unshare my screen? Can somebody guide me on that? This is my
Click the
first
share
time on
screen button
Telegram.
again.
Okay,
Bottom left, in the middle, in the yeah.
stop sharing. All right, thank you.
Right. Yeah, thanks. I didn't even know that, Adam. That was news to me as well. That quote was new to me. Wow. Yeah. So I understand there were numerous references, and so Adam knows much more about the Sunnah than I do. Far more knowledgeable of the Sunnah. I know the Sharia very well, but Adam ties it into the Sunnah in a way that would take me years to learn, or take me hours and hours of research to do. So he knows it very well, and he can show you the one-to-one correlation from Quran and Sunnah to the Sharia, to the Islamic law. So yeah, so back to Machiavellian, right? And jump in anytime you find that you have something to say, please, Adam. And thanks for that. So Machiavellian is using clever but dishonest methods that deceive people so that you can win power or control, right? And here we've got sly and devious, calculating, crafty, cunning, calculating. Okay, so those are words that are related to the concept of being Machiavellian. Let's continue. Now, for instance, in tech, Islam would allow what we would call permissible war crimes. So this is Sahih Muslim, book 32, Hadith 3, also known as Hadith 1731a, also known book 19, Hadith 4294, related to Quran verse 929. Now notice here how they speak about breaking an oath. This is an example of that. So when you lay siege to a fort and the besieged appeal to you for protection in the name of Allah and His Prophet, do not accord them the guarantee of Allah and His Prophet. Do not promise that, yes, on the name of Allah and Muhammad, I guarantee you safety, you can surrender in peace. They say, do not do this. Accord them your own guarantee and the guarantee of your companions. It is a lesser sin that the security given, the promise that you make to these people that they can surrender safely, it is a lesser sin that the security given by you or your companions be disregarded than that the security granted in the name of Allah and His Prophet be violated. When you besiege a fort and the besieged want you to let them out in accordance with Allah's command, do not let them come out in accordance with Allah's command, but do so at your own command. for you do not know whether or not you will be able to carry out Allah's behest with regards to them. So even though Allah has issued a statement saying that if they surrender, allow them to surrender and let them go in peace, unfortunately, as Adam said, the Sharia makes it very plain that you need to do a calculation. And if you decide that these people could go across the border and then come back and fight you again, or if they have information that is potentially harmful to you, and they will tell that to your enemies, which will then reveal your military disposition, location, strengths, weaknesses, then you're entitled to kill them. And therefore, you need to make the promise and then kill them. And therefore, it's better if you just give them your own promise and not the promise of Allah, because you might need to break your oath. In other words, they're setting you up here to break your oaths. So you cannot trust an oath, and therefore, it is permissible in Islam to commit war crimes and commit murder of people who have surrendered within the Sunnah. Any comment from you, Adam?
Yes,
Can
brother.
I
Sorry, please.
Alex, yeah,
ask a question, if I may, Lloyd?
go ahead.
So, what would Muslims class as war? I mean, anything against anybody else, or I don't.
War is permanently established until the day
Yes,
of the return of, until the day of the day of the resurrection. So war is permanently established until the end times when Muhammad comes back. So war is permanently established. Islam is permanently at war with you because you
got you.
have failed to accept Islam. You have failed to accept Allah. You have failed to pray like Muhammad, and therefore they're at war with you.
Oh, I've not failed. I've just been quite lucky. No one's tried to convert me yet.
Yeah, Adam,
Yeah,
you're going to say?
let me answer this question in fullness as well, and then I will go to the oath, because this is a very interesting question, and I think you guys can see my screen now. You don't have to go far. You will go to Sahih Muslim, and you will go to chapter number 1, which is called Kitabul Iman. Iman means faith. The first book, faith. What is the faith of the Muslimin? The faith of the Muslimin is described in chapter number 8, and it says, the chapter, the command to fight the people until they say La ilaha illallah. So basically, this is the name of the chapter. Imagine what will come in the chapter, that you have been commanded to fight all these believers until they say La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad Rasulullah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. So until they say that, they have been commanded to fight all these people. So when will this command over of the fight? When all the people of the world are Muslims, they accept La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is the book of faith. And by the way, this is the first time in any Sahih Hadith the Shahada, the Kalama of Shahada has been mentioned. Not before that. You will not find it before these Sahih Muslim Hadiths. And it says, Muhammad is saying that I have been commanded to fight against the people so long as they do not declare that there is no God but Allah, and who profess it, then his protection of himself and his property is guaranteed on Muhammad's behalf. Otherwise, it is not. So otherwise, your life and your money or your wealth or your possessions. So this is even better, 21b. And when they do it, then their blood and riches are guaranteed protection on my behalf. Okay. Otherwise, it is not. So that's the basic fact. Secondly, while we were talking, I just opened these hadiths as well. This is the hadiths of Sahih Muslim again. It talks about the oaths. You can simply break the oath, full stop. Muhammad said that it is narrated, Sunan ibn Majah 2108, and this is very daif hadith, as always. We can't show Sahih hadiths because they will say that nothing is Sahih. But anyhow, it says that whoever swears an oath means who swears by Allah, swears an oath, then sees that something else is better than it, then let him do which is better and offer expiration of what he swore about. So swearing in Islam is a piece of cake. You swear an oath and then you see something better, you go do that. A
Not
couple of
much of a
examples that
promise.
I'm sorry.
Not much of a promise, is it? If you can just break it after you've said it.
Correct.
Exactly. And then this is Sahih Bukhari, and it gives you a particular narration of what happened, that Muhammad himself swore an oath. broke an oath. So a person went to Prophet, okay, and then Prophet said that then we stayed as long as Allah wished, and Prophet said by Allah. So he swore by Allah. So he swore like by God, by his God. He swore, I will not provide you with mounts, and I haven't got anything to mount you on. Okay, Muhammad said, I will not provide you with mounts. Okay, he swore by Allah. Then what he did was later, uh, stayed with Allah Messenger, and then there were very nice looking she camel were brought to him, and he made us ride them. When we left, we or some of us said, by Allah, we will not be blessed, as we came to the Prophet asking him for mounts, and he swore that he would not give us any mount, but then he did give us the mounts. So let us go back to the Prophet and remind him of his oath. When we returned to him and reminded him of the fact, he said, I did not give you mounts, but it was Allah who gave you. By Allah, Allah willing, if I ever take an oath to do something and then I find something else than the first one, I will make expiration of my oath and do the thing which is better. So, Prophet of Islam swore by Allah and then he broke his swear, and then the people came and telling him, hey Muhammad, what did you do? You broke an oath. He's like, doesn't matter, I find something better. Allah made me break the oath, so be it. Bye bye. We see it in Sahih Muslim 1650. A person sat late in the night with the Allah apostle and then came to his family and found his children had gone to sleep. His wife brought him food, but he took an oath that he would not eat because of his children going to sleep without food, whatever. Without my children, I will not eat. That's what he swore. He then gave precedence of breaking his vow and ate the food. He then came to Allah Messenger and made mention to him, whereupon Allah Messenger said, he who took an oath and later found something better than what should do and expirate of the breaking of his oath. So you can break, you can take an oath, you find something better, go break it. This is not just hadiths, it's Quran. Quran says in
Mhm.
Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter number 5, verse number 89, Allah will not call you to account for your thoughtless oaths. What are thoughtless oaths? You need to realize this fact. What oath is a thoughtless oath, or what oath is not a very significant oath, right?
Oaths,
So
by definition,
basically,
are critically important.
yeah, the billaghwi, like anything which is uttered out of your mouth suddenly as an oath, Allah will
Mm.
not take you accountable for that, because this says thoughtless. Let's just see some other translations, because it's this is very very important, because you can just say an oath and then you just forget about it. Let's see. And talk in vocably of your oath, like suddenly if you take an oath, okay, idle talk oath, right? What is not countable from among your oath, like whatever, like unintentional in your oath. Billaghwi, like suddenly you just said something, that you speak unintentionally as an oath. So basic in reality, if you look at the situation, Allah in Quran, and then you go into the tafsir and you will see so many unintentional oaths and all. So especially when the war is deceit. Now war is already deceit, as I have shown you. In the war, if a person takes an oath, do you think it will be accounted by Allah and Muhammad? No, because
No.
war by default is deceit. And then even if you are not in a war, you are talking to your wife, you're talking to your children, you're talking to some other guy, and it's not a very big oath. I will not give you saddle to sit. I will not give you this, but did give you. So in war, you can just simply break it. In a normal situation, you can still break it. So which situations are there when you cannot break it? It differs
There are no
from
situations in all
muhaddis to
situations.
muhaddis. Yeah, it differs from muhaddis to muhaddis. Some muhaddis will say something else, some muhaddis will say something
Yeah,
else. So
but the hadith,
eventually,
remember, the hadith are not the final. Hadith are not final. What's final is the Sharia, and that's where it's
exactly.
final. And the Sharia states you can break anything at any time for any reason. So,
Thank you so very much, brother. There you go.
thank you. That was interesting. I didn't know some of what you showed me there as well. So yeah,
Uh,
I'll continue, and we'll come back to show how these hadiths became the Islamic law, which became the ijma, which became
Lloyd?
the... Yes?
Yeah, I just want to bring to your attention that we have one question. I don't know if you like to take it now or not.
Let's have a listen. If it's not relevant, then we'll take it we'll return to it at the end if it's relevant now. So let's give them a
Of
chance.
course. So you decide, yeah. Magic After Dark, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. Pleasure to have you guys here.
Evening.
You may come back to this at the end because I may be wrong, and I apologize if I am wrong. But I grew up and live in an area that is very high populated Muslim, so a lot of people.
What is your question, please?
Yeah. So when I learned that a Muslim woman can only marry a Muslim man, and a Muslim man can marry any woman as long as he has permission from his wife, and he can marry multiple wives as long as he has permission from his first wife. So I was wondering, are there any oaths involved in marriage, in a Muslim marriage?
Yes, we will cover one or two of those, and yes, there are. But a man is allowed to lie to his wife. It's legal. A man is allowed to lie to his wife, and in fact, the wife technically can lie to her husband as well. We'll get into that. I will show one or two examples as we go through this. I will certainly show you that.
Appreciate that.
And
Okay.
just to add
All right,
to that
so,
point,
yeah.
you are not supposed to ask permission from your wife to marry another wife, because that's the command of Allah. It says in Surah Al-Baqarah, and marry 2 or 3 or 4. Allah starts with 2, and then he says that if you are not sound enough to marry, then have one. So this is, you need to realize, you don't need to ask your first wife. That is a newer invention of certain parts of the world. In the Islamic countries, it is not required according to the Sunnah and the Quran and the Tafsir. So that's something to note as well.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to be continuing on the basis of what the academics. Now, these academics are not just Orientalists. These are not just Western academics, Western scholars, Western professors who are writing this. The Encyclopedia of Islam is a collaboration with some of the very best Islamic scholars and universities in the world. So we're going to show that there is a very strong confluence. In fact, there's a parallel between what is in the Quran, in the Sunnah, as we've just seen, as well as what academia is stating is how to deal with and understand these things. So a small entry from Encyclopedia of Islam, volume 10. They speak of the Jadaliyya, which is derived from the Arabic, which is jadal, meaning controversy. Now it says that controversy means dialectic. Now dialectic is a method of finding the truth. Now they speak of the dialectical method is a discourse between 2 or more people holding differing points of view about a subject, but wishing to establish the truth through reasoned argumentation. However, what is interesting, they drop in this little note here. This is contrasted with eristic, which refers to an argument that aims to successfully dispute another's argument rather than searching for truth. So very interesting that they drop this in, because again, this is about disputation, which will allow them to win, not to find truth, not to find what is the actual facts of the matter, but how do we win? How do we persuade, convince? So in the original Republic by Plato, he makes a distinction between dialectic and eristic. As he states, the former, dialectic, is an argument made in good faith with the goal of apprehending or finding the truth, whereas eristic is argument as performance with the goal of tearing down one's opponent. Now, Harry, remember the discussion that we had with Zubaydah al-Arabiya and this other strange guy? What was his name?
Hans.
Hans Gruber. Do you think they were looking at dialectic or eristic? Was that performance looking to tear me down?
Yes, the latter.
Right. So understand that Islam clearly falls on the side of this performance, this emotional performance designed to win. So let's have a look further at eristic versus dialectic. Plato said the eristic style did not constitute a method of argument. And of course, they're not presenting evidence. They're not showing you citations, references, facts, things that can be verified. Because to argue eristically is to consciously use fallacious arguments. That's from Wikipedia and the entry on eristic. The philosopher Schopenhauer considers that only logic pursues truth. For him, dialectic, sophistry, and eristic have no objective truth, only the appearance of it. So it is sophist. He believed that they do not seek truth, but victory. They were simply these people that argued with me 2 weeks ago weren't looking to find truth. They were rejecting all evidence out of hand. They were simply making assertions. They wanted to win. They wanted to beat down the opponent, not deal with the facts of their own religion. So let's look at the word artifice. So we're going to jump into this in more depth. And so artifice, clever or artful. Notice expedient, suitable for achieving a particular end, an ingenious device or expedient, a stratagem, which is a trick. It is false or insincere behavior. False or insincere behavior. Let's have a look further. Artifice, different dictionary, the free dictionary, deception or trickery, right? Contrived, made up to achieve an end, especially by deceiving, a stratagem. Now remember, this is in reference to how Muslims debate. Their form of debate literally is designed to win by deception. Let's have a look. Artifice, again, a different dictionary, Collins English, a clever expedient, a stratagem, subtle deception, a contrived device. Let's continue. Random House, Kerneman Webster's College Dictionary, clever trick, stratagem, trickery, guile, craftiness, contrivance, or expedient. Let's look at the dictionary.com. A clever trick or stratagem, cunning, crafty, trickery, guile, cunning, contrivance, subterfuge, deception, deceit, duplicity. Are we determining that this is all about lying and deception rather than honesty, rather than trying to find truth? Because all of these meanings more than hint, they explicitly state this is about lying and deceiving. Let's have a look. Artifice, Cambridge Dictionary, a clever trick or something intended to deceive. Let's look at their related words and phrases. They have lies, lying, and hypocrisy. And not my words, there's a crock of shit, a pack of lies, bad faith, falsification, fiction, to stretch the truth, weasel words, whopper, to perjure, that is to lie under oath, myth. So these are the dictionary definitions for what the Encyclopedia of Islam, the gold standard in Islamic academic knowledge, says that Islamic truth, right, that Islamic debate utilizes falsehood to win. So this is the book we're dealing with, Revival of Religious Learnings, Imam Ghazali's Ihya Ulum al-Din. So go to archive.org to get the 4 volumes, and volume 3 has the Islamic Doctrine on Lying. About the book, it says here, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali is unquestionably the greatest theologian of Islam. So they're very bold about it. So now we've established the bona fides of his book, of his work. Let's look at the man himself. Now, this is taken from a slide where I discuss abrogation in Islam, which is how older verses in Islam are cancelled by newer verses, right, from the Quran, and the same with the Hadith. And where the scholars actually discuss how abrogation, that Allah was forced to abrogate various Quran verses because Muhammad made errors in his understanding of the Quran. But notice what they say here, that Ghazali is highly acclaimed by his contemporaries, and he was the only Muslim in history to be called the Hujjat al-Islam, which translates variously as Islam's foremost authority, but most explicitly means he is the proof of the religion. He is the proof of Islam, its decisive argument, his most known surname. He was a mujaddid, a renewer of the faith, and according to prophetic hadith by Muhammad himself, a mujaddid appears once every 100 years to restore the faith of the ummah. And so he is the proof of Islam. He was able to prove all of the people that they were debating with wrong, utilizing the most profound arguments based on his incredible, profound understanding of Islamic theology and Islamic law. He apparently has never lost an argument. He was considered a genius. Notice that it says here, he refuted the philosophy of Ibn Sina and demonstrated that Aristotelian ethics is incompatible with Islamic ethics. So Aristotle was, of course, someone who liked logic, and he stated that Islamic ethics and Aristotelian ethics don't mix and match. So I'm not going to go into further detail on that. Let's look at a few discussions on who al-Ghazali was. So this is Egypt today, right? Here's the link to this article. And of course, very soon we'll discover that Egypt has nothing to do with Islam. And they write here in this article, he's one of the greatest renewers of the faith in history. He is known as the Hujjat al-Islam, the proof of Islam, because of his efforts in intellectually fighting against some of the most dangerous ideas and philosophies that plagued the Muslim world. Imam Ghazali today is known as the Hujjat al-Islam, Arabic for the proof of the religion, due to his contributions in protecting the Muslim world from the intellectual challenges that were facing it. His life kept in line with the sayings of Muhammad, promising a renewal of the faith every century, 500 years after it was spoken. Let's have another look at Ghazali. He's arguably the greatest scholar and thinker in Muslim history, theologian, logician, jurist, and mystic, meaning Sufi. His celebrated works exercised a profound influence on Muslim intellectual history and earned him the title of Hujjat, the proof of Islam. His ideas contributed towards shaping Sunni ideology. He was a Muslim saint, a saint. He became one of the most famous scholarly authorities in the whole Islamic world. Let's have a look at this book, The Revival of Islam. He is the foremost Islamic scholar and mystic of the medieval period. Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. He's one of the most prominent and influential philosophers, theologians, jurists, and mystics of Sunni Islam. What this means, according to Muslims, once I start showing you what he wrote, is that he had nothing to do with Islam and he was some dippy scholar no one's ever heard of. But I think the evidence says otherwise. And final slide here on this one, he is one of the greatest theologians of Islam. His influence penetrated Europe, influenced Jewish and Christian scholasticism, blah, blah, blah. Al-Ghazali, 900 years later, and still relevant. By Farah Jasad, contributor, and this I quote is HuffPost of all things. Al-Ghazali is acclaimed as the most influential Muslim after the Prophet Muhammad. His work shaped how generations of Muslims would understand their religion. So let's have a look at what he wrote. So we're going to switch now to, we're going to discuss obligatory and permissible lying in reliance of the traveler and the tools of the worshipper, right? And we're going to go to page 744 on a chapter titled Permissible Lying. And we're going to start with, just prior to that, section R 7.0, giving directions to someone who wants to do wrong. Then we'll touch on permissible lying. And here's a little quote from the section that says, talks about strictness, azima, as opposed to the above mentioned dispensations or rukhsa. Strictness is to forego lying in every case where it is not legally obligatory. So if you're being a strict Muslim, don't lie unless it is legally obligatory. But of course, they mention rukhsa, which is dispensation, which is where you're not being strict. In other words, you can lie under these doctrinal conditions, even when it is not legally obligatory. Now, which religion do we know of, except Islam, that teaches that it is obligatory, legally obligatory, to lie? Understand? So this is what is in Islamic law. So, and then I'll mention one last thing before I switch to the reliance. They speak here of, in book 019.0, Justice, in the book of Justice, they mention here examples of breaking oaths. If one swears, I will not eat this wheat, but then you make it into flour or bread and then you eat it, you haven't broken your oath. You've still eaten the wheat, but you see, you didn't eat it as wheat. So therefore you didn't break it, but you ate all of it. There's nothing left, but you didn't break your oath because you didn't eat the wheat. That is semantics. That is dishonesty. Let's look at 019.5. When a person's swearing an oath, and this is the Islamic law, the Islamic sacred law, when a person's swearing an oath about something in the future, affirming or denying that it will occur, includes the expression, inshallah, if Allah wills, and this is a very popular saying, inshallah, before finishing the oath is not broken in any event if he intends to provide for exceptions. So in other words, there is not a single thing that a Muslim cannot break. There is no oath, there is no law, there is no promise, there is no contract, there is no agreement. If he says, inshallah, he can then, if he intends to provide for exceptions, meaning that he's stating, well, look, maybe I won't be able to keep my promise. If I break it, it's all good because I said, inshallah. Any comments or questions before I go on?
Yeah, just to let people know what inshallah means. Inshallah simply means if Allah wills. So, so in reality, what he is saying, and most of the people who doesn't know Arabic would not know that he's making an oath saying, I will give you $1,000 next week. And he suddenly says, inshallah, make sure that that's not an oath now. Because he said, if Allah wills. And then, oh, I was not able to give you because Allah did not will it for me to give it. That's why you will see so many Muslims around you saying inshallah in almost every sentence of theirs.
What does the
Because
word?
then
So what does the word wallah mean then? Because I've had someone say
wallah,
that.
wallahi
Say that.
means by Allah. It means by Allah, like it's like an oath. By
So
Allah,
it's still an
wallahi.
oath, right? Okay.
So you are saying wallahi, I will going to slap you on your face. Inshallah. Now that wallahi has gone down the drain, because he, even though that he swore by Allah, yet he said in the end inshallah, which means if Allah wills. So there is the oath. That's exactly what brother Lloyd is telling you. That's exactly what brother Lloyd is telling you. You need to understand it. Like, they use Arabic words in English sentences that the foreigners do not know. And because it says that you cannot be good with non-Muslims. This is Quran, chapter number 3, verse number 28. It says you can lie with them, you should not be friends with them, you shouldn't be friends with them. In chapter number 9, verse number 28, it says
Yeah,
all
I'll
the
come to that.
kuffar is najas. They are najas, they are filthy. So
Yeah.
combine all of these together, dude. What is an oath? It's nothing. It's a piece of cake. Lie, deception. That's what Islam teaches, brothers.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going to jump into the reliance of the traveler. I'm going to go into the section that I discussed here on on lying and teaching deception. So yeah, so here we are. Okay, so thanks for that, Adam. Appreciate the support and the fact that you're corroborating from the Sunnah. And I will come to 328. We will get to that. So, for instance, they mention here giving directions to wrongdoers, like do not assist one another in sin and aggression. And they say do not do wrong. So, what is doing wrong? Well, giving directions to wrongdoers includes showing the way to policemen when they are going to commit injustice and corruption. For instance, Molenbeek. This is where the Bataclan massacre, well, the Bataclan massacre in Paris. Think about that. These people hid in Molenbeek for 3 months, right? And no one said where they were because showing the way to policemen and tyrants, right? Because they were going to commit injustice, because these men weren't committing terrorism, they were doing jihad in the name of Allah, which is righteous. And it would be corruption for Muslims to inform them on where these people are. Also, Muslims cannot teach you the sacred law. They cannot teach you the Sharia because it says teaching questions of sacred law to those learning it in bad faith. Right now, you are learning it in bad faith. I am teaching it in bad faith because we do not want the knowledge to apply it in our lives to become Muslims. We want to use it for an unworthy purpose, which would be to criticize Islam. Remember, it is lawful and it is compulsory for a Muslim to find Islam to be perfect. A Muslim who says that Muhammad is less than perfect is liable for the death penalty. I've covered that in the past. And of course, if you find Islam to be less than perfect, at the very minimum, you should be caned or whipped, possibly dying in the process. Now, notice you cannot permit or authorize a person to do something that entails disobedience. And acceptance of disobedience is itself disobedience. I am doing something that entails disobedience to Islam, because the Sharia applies not only to Muslims, it applies to non-Muslims equally. It must be applied to them. So now there's a chapter, R8.0, called lying. Okay. Now notice they say primary text from the Quran and Sunnah that it is unlawful to lie, numerous and substantive, except, and of course the but comes, permissible lying. The chapter on page 744 here, section R8.2, permissible lying. The Prophet said, he who settles disagreements between people to bring about good, this is the Islamic definition of good, not your definition of good, or says something commendable is not a liar. So a Muslim who tries to settle a disagreement. Now, last 2 weeks ago, when I was having this disagreement with these Muslims who were denying their own scriptures, denying the words of their own Allah, denying the words of their own prophet, they were trying to settle a disagreement. And therefore, if they lie while trying to settle a disagreement, what they're doing is commendable. It is not a lie, because they're trying to bring about good, because they're trying to bring about the supremacy of Islam. And the perfection of Islam cannot be questioned. And therefore, they were trying to defend the honor of Islam. And therefore, they were doing good, and they were not lying, even when they were lying through their teeth. So this much is related by Bukhari and Muslim, okay, the two most sound, two most authoritative and respected hadith collections. Okay, and of course, Ibn Kulthum added, I did not hear him permit untruth. So Muhammad did not permit lies except for three things: war, settling disagreements, and a man lying to his wife or she lying to him, in smoothing over differences. So we are permanently at war with Islam. I've covered this in the past in depth in previous shows. I've discussed Islam being at war, so I don't want to go over that again unless it's critically necessary. And settling disagreements. So would we disagree with Muslims? Of course we would. Do they disagree with us? Of course they do. So if we have a debate is not a matter of agreement. A debate is a matter of disagreement. Therefore, they must and are allowed to lie. So this is an explicit statement that lying is permissible for a given interest. It is lawful. And notice the translator here states the best analysis of lying, permissible lying, I have seen, and notice the 10 commandments, right, of the Bible. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not thou shalt not present false witness, right? Thou shalt not lie. God is a God of truth. However, Allah is quite capable of lying, and Allah allows lying. So it says here, Ghazali, he mentions the best analysis I have seen is by Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, whom we've just discussed. Speaking is a means to achieve objectives. Now, objectives is a military term. Islam's at war. It says here, when it is possible to achieve a permissible aim, a praiseworthy aim, by lying, but not by telling the truth, it is permissible to lie if attaining the goal is permissible. And when the purpose of lying is to circumvent someone who is preventing one from doing something permissible, and obligatory to lie if the goal is obligatory. So it states here that it is obligatory for a Muslim to lie if the goal is obligatory. Now, is it obligatory that Islam becomes dominant in the world? Yes. Is it obligatory that they eventually take everyone away from Christianity and make them Muslims? Yes. Is it obligatory that the world becomes Islamic? Yes. So therefore, it is obligatory for them to lie. Adam, do you want to add anything here?
Brother, then it makes everything that they say to anybody who is not a Muslim
Suspect.
a lie. And by the way, just to add to this, Sahih Bukhari 2692, it says, he who makes peace between the people, bainan nas, it says bainan nas, any people. Now he includes Muslims as well. Okay, by inventing good information or saying good things, is not a liar. Laysal kizzabul lazi yuslihu bainan nas fayamani al khaira. So if you actually say something for the khair, for the good of the people, and you are trying to reconcile between the people in a good manner, no matter what you say is not a lie. Full stop. So Muslims can lie to Muslims. Muslims can definitely lie to non-Muslims for sure, because they are always in war with them. And that's the reality of Islamic lie, brothers and sisters.
Right. Now, thank you. Yeah. So that's for settling a disagreement, for making peace, for smoothing over differences. They're allowed to lie. In fact, they're required. Notice it states here, it is not unlawful to lie when any of these aims can only be attained through lying. It is religiously, though, they do say, more precautionary to employ words that give a misleading impression. Harry, well, what is a misleading impression? Would that be a deception or a subterfuge or a lie?
Yes, I actually would like to ask a question, if I may.
Sure.
Uh, it's for Adam. In your 40 years as a Muslim, did you actually practice lying as part of your religion?
Brother, I've been giving dawah. I have been living inside the mosques for extended amount of days and going to house. What do you think? I hope I answered the question.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, let's go on.
Right. So remember, this is the most popular Islamic law manual in the world. Okay, it's not the most detailed, but it is the most popular compendium. It's a single volume compendium. It's a little bit of everything. And we're going to go into the book that it is drawing from. We're going to read from that itself. Okay. Now, notice it continues. The outward meaning of the words deceives the hearer. That's what they mean by employ words that give a misleading impression. The outward meaning deceives the hearer. Okay. So understand, you can give words that deceives the hearer. And they don't state if the hearer is a Muslim or a non-Muslim, just deceives the hearer. That's all they refer to. So one should compare the bad consequences entailed by lying to those entailed by telling the truth. And if the consequences of telling the truth are more damaging, you are entitled to lie. Now, this book is sold to millions. It is 900, 800, 900 years old. It's become the most popular Islamic law manual in the world. And understand, we are quoting Ghazali in the most popular book in Islam, the most popular spiritual book in Islam after the Quran and Hadith themselves. So this is the most popular Islamic spiritual book written after the Quran itself. And it is telling you explicitly to lie, how to lie, and when to lie, and that there's no prohibition on lying, because in theory there is, in practice no. They mention your strictness. Forgo lying in every case where it is not legally obligatory. And this tells us there are cases where it is legally obligatory to lie. You are required to lie. So I'm going to finish up with just the last few points here. They have a section, R10, giving a misleading impression. They actually speak about how to give. They teach you how to give a misleading impression. They tell you it is a kind of deception. So your words deceive. Okay, for instance, is so-and-so here? To which the householder, intending the space between himself and the questioner rather than the space inside the house, replies, he is not here. So they teach you how to lie. Scholars say that there's no harm in giving a misleading impression if required by an interest countenanced by sacred law. So in other words, Islamic sacred law, the Sharia, teaches lying, obligates lying. That is more important than not misleading the person addressed. So you have to ask yourself, do I need to lie right now? Oh yeah, probably do. Or maybe I should lie just to be on the safe side, because telling the truth might lead to trouble. So let's lie just to be safe. Or if there's a pressing need which would not otherwise be fulfilled except through lying. So in other words, when in doubt, lie. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Okay, so I can finish this and then we'll go to the actual Ihya Ulum al-Din itself. So we've spoken about that. Okay, then I'll go here. Okay, so that is done. So I finished that. Any comments or questions, Adam, before I move on to the Ihya Ulum al-Din itself?
No, brother, carry on. God bless you. And yes, I do not think of any reason where you cannot lie in Islam, especially with the non-Muslims. And when you go into, I think if you go into the classes where they teach you how to go and give dawah, as the previous questions was asked, they actually give you the hadiths of Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, to show that if required, you can lie to bring them to mosque to begin with. Okay, you can offer prayer in the house to begin with, right? But Muhammad said, even if you're a blind man and you can't go to the mosque, you have to have a rope from your house to your mosque so that you will use the rope to reach to your mosque 5 times a day. But then again, when you go to their houses and try to make them to say at least offer prayer, come to the mosque whenever you can, they'll just whenever you can, if Allah wills, and they'll add these kind of things. So it's a religion based on lies, guys, quite frankly. And they lie because they want to exalt Allah and Muhammad and bring the people to Islam. And that's the reality.
Right. Sadly. So yeah, I'll continue with this and I'll get to the Ihya now. So let's have a look at Sahih Bukhari. Right. Adam's already mentioned this. If you take an oath and later on you find something that is better, expiate your oath and do what is better. So break your oath, say you're sorry to Allah, and then do what is better. So if you go to Quranics.com down in the bottom and you do a search in their search bar on Quranics.com for expiate oath, you're going to find several of these. You'll find at least 10 or more that will tell you that yes, you're allowed to break your oath. It's part of the Sunnah. It is definitely part of Islam. Here you got Sahih Muslim as well. So you had Sahih Bukhari, now you've got Sahih Muslim. Do the better thing, break your oath, it's fine. Now, let's have a look at something called liyan. This is a very uncommon, very well. I learned this from one of the guys is actually in the audience right now. Sent me this. I'd noticed it, but it never clicked until he showed it to me, and then I was like, yeah, that suddenly it made sense. So thanks for that. Liyan, cursing, oath of imprecation. In law, the oath which gives a husband the possibility of accusing his wife of adultery without legal proof. So you're allowed as a Muslim man to accuse your wife of adultery without legal proof, and therefore you are not liable to the punishment prescribed for lying to the judge. Because if you accuse your wife, according to Islamic law, if you accuse your wife of adultery and you're wrong, you are liable for punishment. But now here there's an out. Every single ruling in Islam has an out clause, and the possibility of also denying the paternity of a child born by his wife. So you can deny the fathering of a child by your wife. It frees the husband and wife from the legal punishment. Fantastic. Now notice this is in the Encyclopedia of Islam. You look in the Encyclopedia, volume 13. And so let's see if this has a precedent within the Sunnah itself. And it says here, a man accused his wife of committing illegal sexual intercourse. The Prophet made them both take the oath of liyan, and he separated them by divorce. So in other words, there was no such illegal sexual intercourse. It was just, how do I get out of this marriage? I'll accuse her of divorce. Okay, and she, whatever, they go along, and Bob's your uncle. Done. Sahih Bukhari, volume 7, book 63, hadith 226. Let's look at a second example. So now we're looking at the Prophet made a man and his wife carry out liyan, and the husband repudiated her child. And it says the possibility of denying the paternity of a child. So the Prophet got them separated by divorce and decided that the child belonged to the mother only. In today, we would call this a deadbeat dad. Besides the fact that what is stated here within the Encyclopedia of Islam is borne out precisely by the Sunnah itself. Okay, and I've got to mention here, the liyan occurs in the Quran, in Quran chapter 24, verses 6 to 9. And of course, you've got in Quran 328, Tafsir Ibn Kathir. I will go to that now, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, just to mention that, because Adam mentioned it earlier. This is in regards to this verse. Or you who believe, take not my enemies and your enemies as friends. Right? Do not take the Christians and the Jews, because the verse states, you who believe, you who are Muslims, do not take Christians and Jews as friends, because if you become their friend, you are one of them, and you then become an enemy of the Muslims. And this is Tafsir Ibn Kathir. He's now providing exegesis of that verse. Or you who believe, take not the Jews and the Christians as friends. I wonder who he's talking about, Jews and Christians. Who knows? Who knows who he could be talking about? They are the friends of each other. Okay? And then he says, notice it says here, Al-Bukhari recorded that Abu Darda said, we smile in the face of some people, although our hearts curse them. Al-Bukhari said that Al-Hasan said, the takiyya is allowed until the day of resurrection. So understand, we spoke of takiyya earlier, and Muslims will tell you it's a Shia concept. Sunni Muslims do not use the term mudarat. It barely comes up. I struggle to find it. They utilize the term takiyya as well. It's common parlance within Sunni Islam. And in fact, here it's by one of the greatest exegetes of Islam, one of the greatest scholars of Islam, that takiyya is allowed until the day of resurrection. In other words, deception is allowed until the end of time. There is no time limit. So it is always permissible according to this. And I want to bring up one thing I've got here. Asrar, this is the tafsir of Quran 68:1. I'm not going to go into depth on this, but this is something worth noting when they speak of, and we've spoken of it before, the Sufis. But the Pir of the Tariqah, that's a Sufi school, and the head of the Sufi school, the elder, Pir is the elder, says, oh Allah, no matter how sinful we are, you are forgiving. No matter how ugly our deeds, you are the concealer. So no matter how ugly your deeds, you are the concealer. And we're going to see this later on. This will play out again later. And it says here that Allah will pass over our disloyal acts. So Allah will, and of course, this comment on the inkwell, I'm going to forgo this right now on the inkwell, but this is a very interesting reference. The Rosicrucians allude to this story with the inkwell, as well as, oddly enough, Martin Luther. But yeah, there may be some relevance there, or there may not. I can discuss that another time. But bear that in mind. So I'm now going to go back to this, and we're going to go up, and then I'll finish this, and then I'm going to go into the Ihya Ulum al-Din of Al-Ghazali and see what he says about lying. But any comments or questions from you, Harry, before I go on, or Adam?
Yeah, if I may add over here, because you moved the part very fast, the previous part,
Yeah.
which is very important. So what happens is that uh, a guy named Hilal bin Umayyah came to Prophet, and he said that my wife committed adultery. Uh, and Muhammad said, "Give me the proof. You need to give me 4 witnesses." And he said, "What should I do? While my wife is having sex with another guy, should I go and bring 3 more witnesses? Are you, you know, are you mad?" And then Muhammad said, "No, for the legal punishment, you have to bring 4 witnesses and all." And then Hilal actually said to Muhammad, "I know Allah will save me from this punishment, and He will definitely give you a particular verse of Quran." And then what happens is that Allah reveals Quran chapter number 24, verse number 69, 6 to 9. And it says, "And those who accuse their own spouses but have no witnesses except themselves, then let the testimony of one of them be equal to the 4 oaths." And then it says, and the fifth oath is, "May Allah curse me," right? Curse upon him if he is a liar, right? So, but it will prevent punishment from her or him, and etc. etc. 6 to 9. Now, what happened in the hadith is that the guy actually swore that oath, and then the girl actually swore that oath as well. So this is in Jamia Tirmidhi 3179. This is in Sahih Bukhari 5349. This is in Sahih Bukhari 4795 as well. So multiple hadiths, you can find that. And they all refer to Quran chapter number 24, verse number 6 to 9. So they both swore the oath 4 times, and they swore the oath 5th time, the curse of Allah be upon them, etc. etc. And then nothing happened because Allah Messenger was not able to give the reference of that. And then both of them went bye bye. Now, our brother Lloyd actually showed you for the next verse, the takiyya verse 328, he showed you only Ibn Kathir, because you will only find
Hmm.
Ibn Kathir in some parts of the translation. The rest of the part of the translation is not even there. In the very end of the Ibn Kathir, which is not translated into English, it says that in the Bukhari, Hazrat Hassan, who is the you know grandson of Muhammad, said that this is till the day of judgment. That this takayya is till the day of judgment. In Qurtubi, it states very clearly, that Hazrat Ibn Abbas said that Allah has forbade the Mu'min, means the Muslimin, that they should never be nice with the kuffar. Never be nice with the kuffar. And this is the masla number 1, right? They should never be nice with the kuffar. And then it says that there are certain times, the masla number 2, the problem number 2, situation number 2, that there was a time before the hijrah that the Muslims were not powerful. And then at that time, they were being nice to their non-Muslim people, right? But this is what the person has to say from his tongue only, from his tongue only. But in the heart, he should not have that kind of a uh, faith, he's actually is doing that. Like, he shouldn't be doing that, right? And
Yeah.
even the scholars actually connect this verse with chapter number 16, verse number 106. And it says, chapter number 16, verse number 106, it says, "Whosoever disbelieves in Allah after their belief, not those, or except who are forced with their hearts." So basically, if you are forced, the takayya is not just when you are under pressure. Yes, certain scholar does put them only when you are under pressure, but but like the actual verse is 16 106, where you come into forceful, that you can actually deny Allah and Muhammad as well. And every tafsir actually gives you the reference that yes, at that particular time you can actually deny. And this is 16106. This is 16106, not 3 not 3
Yeah, I have
28.
it up on the screen. I have it up on the screen.
You
Yeah,
have it? Yeah. So in
it's
that
showing. Yeah, it's showing.
verse, yeah, in that verse, it says different references that there was a couple of guys, they talk about Bilal, and they talk about a lady who actually did not deny Allah and Muhammad, and Bilal was given so much of a painful like treatment, and that lady, they put a spear from her private part and took it out from her head. So Muhammad said, if you have fear, at that time you can deny me and Allah as well, but in your heart you should know that you have not denied me and you have not denied Allah. So Muslims actually mix 16106 nowadays when they are talking to the non-Muslims like us, and they say you do not know Jack, and takiyya is only when you are in fear. But these are two different verses. So you then you say cannot be friends with Jews and Christian, and they are being friends with you. Now they are being friend with you. They are lying, because lying is allowed. It's not just about takayya over there. Right now they are in the West. They are low in number. You are not killing Muslims, but they are denying you. Oh, sorry, they are being friend with you, and they are denying their true teaching, and they are coming to your parties or whatever. They are trying to show that Islam is peaceful, tolerant, and it accepts you. But as soon as they are in power, means they are more in number, all of this will go away. All of this will go away.
Right. The scholars agree that if a person is forced into disbelief, and this is because of abuse or beatings or threats, I mean, so that's very subjective, understand? It is permissible for him to go along with them in the interests of self-preservation.
Yep, that's 16106.
Yeah, that's the tafsir.
That's
I'm
not
giving
three.
Ibn
Yeah,
Kathir.
that's not
Yeah,
328. And
16:106.
by
Yeah.
the way, this exactly, and this 328, this tafsir that you are reading in English, it is less than half of the tafsir which is in Arabic. Man, that's crazy.
Wow.
That's how they actually do that. So, but anyhow, so
Yeah.
you guys see the difference between the 328, which is a very common verse about this, and then 16106. They are two different occasions, two different subjects, two
Yeah.
different references, and they are at least a few years apart, these two
I want
verses.
to mention on that we're going to go now. We're going to do one or two small things, and then we're going to talk about from the Ihya Ulum al Din itself. We're going to go into the actual teachings on how to lie, when to lie, what to lie about, and so on. And it does state that to save his honor, right, a Muslim is allowed to lie simply for the sake of saving face. You're allowed to lie. It is quite permissible. And so that I think would have a bearing on 16106. As we read it, I think you can see the parallels as we go through that. So now another point I want to mention. Thanks, Adam. So usury. Usury is evil because the Jews do it. The evil Jews do usury. And Muslims don't do usury except when they do usury because it's evil, except it's not evil when they do it, but it's evil when the Jews do it because Muslims don't do it except they do it all the time. And they don't do it because the Jews are evil because of usury, but Muslims are squeaky clean when they do the very same thing because people are hypocrites. So usury is evil for evil Jews and Islam. So let's have a look. This is a lovely argument people love to use, but of course, ignorance is bliss. So there's a principle called ba'atan fi baya. In law, a double sale, which is a legal device, a hiyal. Legal devices are hiyal, don't forget, which is a legal device to get around the prohibition of interest. So there's a prohibition in the Quran on interest. Allah says, don't charge interest. It should be noted that in the Old Testament, Jews are allowed to charge interest. God gives them permission to charge interest. But in the Quran, Allah apparently says, no, there's a prohibition on interest. Don't do that stuff. So what do Muslims do? They get around it. They violate the law by being smart. Let's see. An example is the transaction called muqatara, where the prospective debtor sells to the prospective creditor a slave for cash. He then immediately buys the slave back from him for a greater amount payable at a future date. This amounts to a loan with the slave as security and the difference between the two prices represents the interest. Remember, there are hundreds of these legal devices to get around. So no matter what you get shown in the Quran, no matter what you get shown in the Sunnah, no matter what you get shown in the Sharia, every single ruling, every single law, every single principle, every single moral virtue, every single thing has its opposite. There is not a single sacrament there is nothing that is sacred in Islam. Nothing. Every single thing can be violated. There is nothing that cannot be violated. Understand that. Okay? So this happens constantly. When you buy a car in an Islamic country, you will pay interest. You're going to pay interest. Just how they do it is what you would call semantics, right? But it's done. So understand that they do this. And apparently it's okay when they do it because people are hypocrites. So, darura. Let's have a look at this last one. Necessity in law, right? It is to do some action forbidden by the law. So, necessity. I mentioned earlier, taysir and darura, ease and necessity, to ease to relax the laws or to break them in case of necessity, unspecified needs where it's necessary. So you can do actions forbidden by the law, okay? And prohibitions of a religious character may be disregarded in cases of necessity and danger. So not only danger, but necessity. And that necessity might be embarrassment to save face. So offenses committed under the rule of necessity are excused without any punishment. Do you want to mention anything on that point, Adam, before I continue?
Yeah, they can actually see, if you are Europeans, there are Islamic house financing. What is that? You do give interest. Your house, actually, you are paying whatever, 3 times or 4 times, whatever the actual price of the house is, but they do not
Mhm.
hold the ear by saying it's an interest. They just don't say it's an APR. They just don't use those terminologies.
Mhm.
And they do the similar kind of a thing. They will sell you the house, they will buy you the house, and they will say you have a portion of the house that you have purchased, and then you are paying a rental on the rest of the portion of the house which belongs to me. So they will make the house into whatever months as parts, and they will say this is the total number of parts of the house, and the part of the house that you will buy, you will not have to pay rental. So the rental in the beginning will be so big, and the rental in the end will be so small. So then they devise another plan to make it linear. So they don't take the rental in equal amount. They divide it in such a way, and then they do a whole calculation based on
Yeah,
selling and buying and all these kind of stuff.
semantics.
So they play, but at the end of the day, you are paying them interest. That's how it is.
Correct.
But it's Islamic financing, and the Muslims goes to Islamic financing. Why? This is the money making machine for the Muslimin, so that the money will not go to the other
Kafirs. Yeah.
loaners or whatever you say, the institutes, but rather stay within the Islamic
Yeah.
brotherhood.
I bought a car when I was living in Dubai, and so what I wanted to do was I wanted to pay the car off sooner, and I was doing financing to the bank at a certain interest rate, and then my bank offered me a loan at a very low rate of interest. So I decided to take the loan, and I asked them for 40,000 dirham, roughly about $10,500, to just pay the car off quicker. What they did was they didn't give me 40,000. What they did was they gave me about 37,000. So what they do is they charge you a fee, and then what they do is for some reason they deduct an amount off of that, so they don't actually give you the full amount. So technically, you're not paying interest because you pay the interest as a fee up front, and then they just charge you the rest. So in fact, they give you less than what you asked for, but for some reason, they can justify this, and then they don't have to call it interest. So you're paying an exact amount, but they've charged the interest up front, and you've paid the interest up front, and then you just pay a flat rate. So there's technically no interest, but you've paid the interest in a lump sum in advance. So they have lots and lots of ways, these hiyal, to do this. So it is highly deceptive, but it happens. Okay, so I want to mention this, mudarat. So treating others in a friendly manner. Remember, we smile at people, but in our hearts, we curse them. Concealing your true attitude towards them also falls under diplomacy. Isn't that sweet? Diplomacy. So you smile, you treat others in a friendly manner, concealing your true attitude of hatred as you curse them, which is Islamic diplomacy. They mention those who died after spending their lives waging war against their nafs were regarded as martyrs in the greater jihad. Even if a believer dies in his own bed, he is a shahid who will be treated as if he had been killed fighting alongside the prophets. Other Imami traditions declare as martyrs those who in their lifetimes practiced mudarat, who treated others in a friendly manner while concealing their true attitude towards them. A Muslim who is nice to you yet curses you in his heart will be treated as a shahid, someone as a martyr who died fighting, killing and being killed in jihad, and he will earn the greatest rewards of paradise. Thank you. I saw that comment from James. Thank you very much. So understand, a Muslim who lies to you is earning reward from Allah. He's being treated as a martyr, someone who earns the greatest rewards in paradise. So he goes to the highest of paradise because he lied to you. So lying is a sacrament, lying is holy, lying gains them righteousness. So notice these are the categories of people that you can lie to, since we were talking about takiyya and mudarat. Mudarat is the Sunni doctrine of deception. It is another name for takiyya. It is calculated deceit. For political reasons, we saw there, for diplomacy, as well as for warfare. Mudarat means flattery, adulation, conformity with deceit, trickery, keeping pace with, to wrap, to conceal, or hide. It is deceptive behavior and can be practiced with anyone when necessary, Muslim or non-Muslim, your mother, your father, you too. Sunni scholars have identified 10 categories. Now, there might be 50 categories. Depends where you look, depends who you ask, okay? I've identified 10 categories of people who are to be regularly targeted by mudarat. The first one is kafir, the kuffar, the non-Muslims, a tyrannical ruler, those whose hearts have been recently reconciled to Islam, a revert. Remember, you don't convert to Islam, you revert to Islam. You were originally a Muslim and you were weaned away through your upbringing. So you can be lied to through dawah. That's what this is stating. You can be lied to into Islam through dawah. One who has deviated from the truth of Islam to win him back. So you can lie to your fellow Muslim. A Muslim who has gone astray in imitating non-believers. A learned scholar or scientist to benefit from his knowledge. We might call this industrial espionage, for argument's sake. A friend, lying to a friend, lying to your enemies. Okay, I guess there's no difference between friends and enemies. Muslims are your frenemies, right? One's spouse, because lying to your wife is always recommended in Islam, always recommended. And a person who may be ill by giving them hope that they will become well and that they look well. So, and yeah, I will pause there, and then next step will be we will go into the OneNote database, and we'll go into Imam Ghazali's exposition on lying. Any comments before I continue into Imam Ghazali's own work? So hopefully we've set a solid grounding to understand the doctrine of lying and deception in Islam.
Yes, you did. You established the evidence so clearly. I am very thankful to the both of you. Would you like me to see if there are any questions, or you
Yeah,
want to
please,
continue?
please do.
So, guys, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. A quick question on the topic of discussion. No. Please continue.
Okay. So
Okay,
now I'm going to
before
go.
we go into, sorry, brother.
Sure.
Yeah,
Go for
while
it.
we go into Imam Ghazali, there is a specific statement which is spoken in many parts of the world. I do not know if it is spoken in the West. Imam Ghazali's work is called in such a way, is so highly exalted, that they say if all the hadith and Sharia books gets burned and you do not have anything, Imam Ghazali's work is more than sufficient to understand
I
Islam.
quoted that. That's Nawawi.
Quoted
I
that.
quoted that.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's how exalted, highly exalted this guy is. He's not a joke. He is not a joke.
Yeah. No, no, thanks for that. Yes, I did. I made very sure that people understand how important he is in Islam. So, guys, I've just shared now in the chat the link to the OneNote database. It will open up in a browser. It will open in a browser, and you will be able to follow along in the browser. And the tab is called here on the right-hand side, Sacred Lying and Holy Deception. We're going to go through this section. I'm not going to go into depth into everything. I want to specifically just go to, but very briefly, the Quran teaches it is allowable for Muslims to literally deny their faith in order to, quote unquote, protect themselves. Muslims who deny their faith will be forgiven as long as their true faith was not shaken. Their denial was a lie in the purest sense. So they lie about lying. So Islam will lie about lying. Okay, and understand this confirms everything that we've said here. But now I'm going to go into this section. Now I've covered this, the Islamic doctrines of deceit. Now I probably won't go into depth into all of this tonight, but we've covered some of this, we've explained this, and now I'm going to go into this section here. As I said, you guys are welcome to follow along. Okay, I made this as big as possible to cover the entire screen so you can read this. So Imam Ghazali in the Ihya Ulum al-Din, we're going to read what he says. It should be known that telling lies is not unlawful, because lying is not harmful in itself. He says the harm is in what it causes to the addressee. So there's no moral prohibition on lying in Islam. It's just that if it causes harm, it's bad. But if you lie and nothing bad happens, well, it's all good. This is a very different moral basis that we have in the West, that we have in Christianity, even in Western law. Understand? So when you put your hand in the UK courts, they hold up the Quran and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me Allah. And he says, of course I'm going to tell the truth. He's lying. The Quran allows lying. Islam allows lying. So telling lies is not unlawful. And it says here, ignorance might serve the benefit. So lying to someone to keep them ignorant might serve the benefit of Islam, the benefit of the Muslims. And since ignorance is caused by telling lies, it might then be allowable, if not obligatory. So lying in Islam is obligatory if it serves Islam. And if it allows you to gain a benefit, well, then, hey, go for it. Telling lies in some cases is better than telling the truth. So this conflicts completely with any moral basis or legal basis we have in the West. Understand? I'll continue. Telling lies is, as such, is obligatory. So whatever reason they give here, have you seen him? Okay. Telling lies as such is obligatory. So they mention situations, supposedly harmless situations, but why would you lie in the harmless conditions? Well, you lie to take as a precaution, because you're allowed to lie. As we said, it is precautionary to lie. It is safer to lie just in case. So speech is a means to achieve praiseworthy purposes. If it is possible to achieve this purpose only by telling lies, then telling lies is permissible in case achieving that purpose is permissible, and it is obligatory to lie in case achieving that purpose is obligatory. Okay, so they will always mention these morally pure reasons, like, oh, if to protect the blood of a Muslim, and if telling the truth will lead to the shedding of the blood of a Muslim, then yeah, sure, whatever. However, you will notice that this is one extreme example. It is not the only example. It is a minor example. It says here, furthermore, if it is impossible to accomplish war or to mend the relation between two adversaries and attract the heart of the plaintiff except through telling lies, then telling lies is allowable. So, Harry, would you say that myself and Zubaydah Al-Arabiya and Hans Gruber and I were adversaries?
Absolutely.
So does it state here that to mend the relation between two adversaries, they should tell lies? It is allowable. In fact, it is obligatory. Am I reading this correctly?
Yes, that's why we said that a debate is not possible with these people, and that if ever we want to do something, we have to put it as like a trial, and to actually
Yes.
bring the evidence,
evidence.
ask for very direct questions, and not allow them to evade the topic like they all the time do.
Correct. Now, and remember, we've mentioned that Adab al-Jadal, the format of debate, is evasion. It is evasion. It's specifically designed to evade and deflect. So telling lies is unlawful unless it is necessary. The exception is confirmed by the statement of the Messenger of Allah, okay, which says the Messenger of Allah said he gave concession. So Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, the God of Islam, if we want to look at it that way, gave concession to tell lies. So Muhammad gave concession to lie. And he mentions three cases. in battle, which is warfare, and Islam is permanently at war. If we go into the dialogue, if we go into jihad, which I have, that's been established, for bringing reconciliation amongst persons. So that is anyone you disagree with. So to bring reconciliation against anyone you disagree with, lie. And in the husband's talk to his wife, or the wife's speech to her husband. So lying to the wife and the husband is, in fact, permitted by the Prophet of Islam himself. And notice it says here, Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, said, not a liar is he who makes reconciliation between two adversaries. And he says good or tells good. So you say nice things. Remember, we go back to diplomacy. Okay? Telling lies in diplomacy is permitted because it does good. So if you make reconciliation between adversaries, well, that's a good thing. It doesn't solve the problem, it just allows you to win. All kinds of lies are written as sins against the son of Adam, except when a man tells lies to make reconciliation between Muslims. That's related, that's by Muslim Ahmad. That's one of the four founders of these schools of jurisprudence of Islam. So I told the Messenger of Allah, thereupon he said, make reconciliation between the people, even by means of telling lies. Now, I don't want to call Muhammad a liar, but Muhammad said that you should tell lies to bring peace. So lie to people if it settles a disagreement. And so I sometimes tell lies to my wife, the man said, and there is no good in telling lies. I sometimes promise her and say to her such and such. And Muhammad said, there is no sin on you for lying. I'll continue. The Messenger of Allah said, of a surety, all kinds of lies are written as sins, except when a man tells lies in war. For indeed, war is deception, a guile. If you read through the Old Testament and the New Testament, if you look up the word guile within the Bible, guile is always an abomination to God. Again, a completely different moral basis from a Christian doctrine point of view versus Islam, where it is normal behavior. Or when he makes reconciliation between two adversaries, this point is being hammered home repeatedly. Or when he talks to his wife and pleases her. So lie to your wife, lie to your opponents, lie to your adversaries, lie to your enemies, lie to everybody for any reason for that matter. All lies are sins, except therewith one benefits a Muslim or averts harm. So the situation of, well, if you're trying to save a Muslim and someone's going to hurt him, wouldn't you lie? Yeah, sure, we'd tell a lie, of course, right? That's the lesser of two evils in that case, because you're trying to avert murder. However, it says that all lies are sins, except if it benefits a Muslim. Now, would it benefit a Muslim to win an argument? Would it benefit them? Of course it would. So therefore, lie. Am I reading that correctly, Adam?
Absolutely, brother. And there are so many hadiths on that already. We have gone through. Uh, I don't know if there
Yeah.
is any which says otherwise.
Right. Yeah. So telling lies is reported to be allowable. So it is allowable to lie. They're not saying don't lie, don't lie. There's no thou shalt not lie. It's go ahead and knock yourself out. Lie whole day, every day. Do it for free. Evil doing he has committed in what is between him. So notice, if you're arrested, you do something illegal or wrongful, okay? Any evil doing that he has committed in what is between him and Allah and Almighty, in which case he has the right to deny it. Now, what this speaks of is that if you do something and you're caught, deny it, lie, because the judgment is between you and Allah and not between you and the law. So you can go ahead and deny it. In other words, gaslight everyone around you. Deny it, deny it, deny it, because the truth is between you and Allah, and your punishment is between you and Allah, not between you and other men. And say, I have never committed adultery or theft. So deny, deny, deny. In other words, lie. And just say, I never did it. I didn't do it. The Messenger of Allah said, if one commits anything of those dirty and shameful things, he should screen himself with the screen of Allah Almighty, because Muhammad tells us to disclose a shameful deed is itself a shameful deed. So lie about shameful deeds, because otherwise you would bring shame on Islam. And the whole thing is between you and Allah. So go ahead and lie, because lying is better. Your thoughts on this, Harry, before I continue? This won't take us very long. I'll finish with this shortly. And Adam, Harry, any comments from you guys before I go on?
Yeah, when you talk about this, it reminds me of the hadith, which is in Sahih hadith. It says that a woman who committed adultery came to Muhammad and said, I've committed
Yes.
adultery, right? And he said, go, raise the kid because you are pregnant. And then she goes raise the kid and all that, and then she comes back and says, no, I have the kid. I committed adultery. It's like, okay, your kid is still not old enough. Go and give him milk, and when he's eating, come back again. So then she comes back again after the kid is eating and all that, and then Muhammad takes the kid, give it to somebody else, and kills the lady. And I forgot to mention in the first, when she came to first, he mentioned it 3 times before Muhammad said, go do this. Now, all the fuqaha of deen of Islam, they actually say that this shows that that lady should not have pronounced her sin in front of Muhammad and everyone. If she would not have, Muhammad would have let her go. The problem
Mhm.
is different. When the lady came to Jesus, look what he did. He never said, don't tell me. He, you know, this is how different it is. So when you commit a sin in Islam, you have to keep it to yourself and ask Allah for forgiveness. Do not go for the scholar or anybody to ask and for the punishment and all, because if you ask for the punishment, you will get the punishment. If you will not ask for the punishment, you will be forgiven by Allah and all, because you should show to the world that Muslimin are very good. And that is why you will not see newses coming out of Saudi Arabia and these kind of countries. They have very, very secure news channels and all on this regard, and they keep it to themselves only. So you see
Right.
what is happening in the world versus the hadiths. And what this guy is saying is he's not saying anything beyond Islam. It's
Yeah.
saying exactly what it said in hadith and sunnah and everywhere.
Remember, I said that in adultery, in Christian law, in Western norm, as a Western norm, is Christianity doesn't have law. But in Western norms, we have right and wrong. We have the moral law in terms of right and wrong. Islam doesn't have right and wrong. It doesn't have a moral law. It has it has legal and illegal. Understand? Because adultery in the West is considered a sin. In Islam, it's a crime. Sin, crime. Crimes are punished. This crime is punished by death, right? So stoning in this case, you should be stoned to death. That's the proper punishment for this. Now notice book 4, evil of the tongue, page 229 within this. One is the right to safeguard his honor with his tongue. So you have the right to safeguard your honor with your tongue, even if you have to tell a lie. He has the right to deny what he knows about his secrets. He has the right to tell lies in making peace between two foes. So in Islam, you have the right to tell a lie to save face, even if you have to lie. You have the right to deny what you know about your secrets, okay? So don't tell the truth about someone, right? And you have the right to lie to tell, well, to settle disagreements between two foes. If you learn that the forbidden that ensues from telling the truth is more grievous under religious law than that which ensues from telling a lie, then he has the right to tell a lie. So if admitting the truth that yes, Islam does permit lying would cause shame and embarrassment to you and to Islam, then of course that is illegal and that is going to cause embarrassment, and this is bad under Islamic law. So therefore you must lie to protect Islam, because telling the lie is better than telling the truth. So in fact, just to be safe, just lie. So this now, so I'll continue. This is the final one, okay, on this. So now we've got Greed and Sexual Passion, Volume 3, Ihya Ulum al-Din, Volume 3, just a different translation. And it says there is no sin in that falsehood which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from him. So telling a lie that benefits a Muslim. Now let's see. Does lying benefit me? Well, okay, yeah, so I'll lie. So Islam teaches to lie if it brings you benefit. He who commits fornication, as Adam explained to us, shall keep it secret with the secret of Allah. To disclose an obscene act is also an obscene act, because you bring shame upon Islam. Every man should save his life, property, and his honor by taking recourse to falsehood. So to save face, to save your name, to save yourself from embarrassment, lie. Take recourse to falsehood. So your honor is very different. Remember, these are honor cultures. These are honor cultures. So therefore, they have to lie for their honor on a rather consistent basis. If inquiry is made to you about a secret thing of your brother Muslim, you can lie about it to preserve his honor. That's a lovely euphemism. You can deny it. You can lie about it to preserve his honor. If harm is caused more than benefit in the case of speaking the truth, then speaking the truth may be avoided. In other words, lie. If more harm is caused than benefit in the case of speaking, if the truth causes any kind of damage to reputation of Islam, if the truth breaks any of the Islamic laws, then you are obligated to lie. So understand, I hope that has made this clear from these notes. Any comments or questions?
Anyone has a question, please? If you do, raise your hand. No, not
So
even Dave.
Adam, I'll hand over to you. So any question, any comment from you, Harry? Otherwise, I'll hand over to Adam, because that basically wraps me up. I have more notes, but they're not edited yet. They're not ready. I can show them, but they're raw, and so they're likely to be errors and issues with them. But I can hand over to Adam at this point. I can bring up those notes, but again, those are raw, unedited notes, probably chock full of errors and problems. Right now.
I believe James wants to ask a question, Harry.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead, James.
Cheers. No, Lloyd, I just wanted to say that I was really enjoying listening to your talk. I was busy. I couldn't get in here sooner, but it's just so good to hear someone who has really gone through the Quran in detail, like you have, to point out that this religion is not sort of the peaceful religion that people claim it to be, and also, there's so many people on still in the truth movement who they get very offended if you criticize other religions, and you get the line, "Who are you to criticize another religion?" Blah blah blah. But the thing is, that's really just based in laziness and ignorance, because if you actually go and read the scriptures of other religions, you realize they're not compatible with one another. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your research. I've sent you a little message. I'd really like to follow up with you after this and have some conversations.
Of course, yeah, no, I do actually have many conversations with people, so certainly you're welcome to reach out. I will be happy to speak with you. No, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, God bless you. And we need this work so badly to open people's eyes. And to get rid of this politically correct kind of notion, even within the truth community, that you can't criticize other people's religions. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a Christian. You can criticize anything you like about my faith. You can go into anything I've said, pick it apart, call me whatever you like. I actually relish that. I actually relish people trying to demolish my faith. They will gaslight me and claim that I don't like it, but I do. I like discussions about this, but with Muslims, it's very funny. I've been trying to put together a group of Muslims and Christians to talk about the scripture, but Muslims just can't handle being questioned,
No, of course, look, because the precedent was set in the 11th century by a man called Ibn al-Jabbar, who basically, the precedent was, you don't defend Islam, you attack Christianity, you attack the Bible, because they realize, because of the mythical nature of Islam, because it's based on Gnosticism, and just a variety of, the main strand of Gnosticism would seem to be Manichaeism. I can discuss that in depth another time. In fact, Manichaeism seems to be the main root of even Hinduism. But then, of course, it's also a mixture, it's syncretism of Jewish myths, of Christian religion, of other Gnostic ideas. It's a complete mishmash of things, right? Of old Zoroastrian ideas, but it's Gnostic, it's mythical, and they cannot defend it. It's really difficult for them. Once you go through the especially the Sharia, there's no way. So yeah, look, obviously Islam, I hope I've made this clear to everyone. And again, all the resources are available. I've made every single thing I've got here available, pardon me, to all of you, so that you can all download and read it for yourself, check it for yourself. Islam teaches lying. It is a religion. No, it's not even a religion. Islam is a deen. I've discussed this multiple times in the past. Islam is a deen. A deen is a political system. In fact, let me go there since I'm here. Islam is not a religion. Yes?
Have we got time for another quick question before you continue?
Of course we do. Of course we do. Yeah,
Dave,
go ahead.
Woven Art, Dave the Pond's got a question.
Go ahead, Dave, please.
Yeah, it wasn't a question, it was just a comment. You've mentioned Machiavelli. Everybody
Yes.
should download the book The Prince because it enables you to understand. And this is a book that you'll find people like Tony Blair have read. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, this was in relation. So Machiavelli was in relation to Islamic dawah, which is their evangelism, their evangelization. And so briefly, again, you guys need to understand this. Islam is a deen. They utilize the word religion because it's familiar to you, but it's also misleading because it's not a religion. It's a very tiny portion. Let's have a look. The Lisan al-Arab, the tongue of the Arab, this is the oldest, but in fact, this is by the same author that wrote The Reliance of the Traveler, oddly enough. This is a 20-volume dictionary. It's the most detailed dictionary of Islam. It provides 4 meanings of the term deen. Let's start with the very first meaning of deen, because Islam is a deen. They always speak of the deen al-haq, the religion of truth, the deen of truth, is subjugation or dominance, administrative or legislative authority. So first, it is political power through subjugation and dominance. That is the very first meaning of deen. It is not a religion, to dominate and subjugate others. Second, this is legal authority, administrative or legislative authority. Then third, to put pressure, to be obedient, using power to enslave or to make others obedient. In Arabic, dintuhum fadanu means I subjugated them so they obeyed me, right? The second layer of meaning within deen is obedience and bondage, subordination and domination by someone who bears humiliation under subjugation and power of others. Here, deen does not mean religion. It means obedience. Don't forget, obedience under humiliation and subjugation under the power of others. These others being the Muslims. The third meaning is rules, regulations, legal regulations, ideology, doctrine, custom, adab. Remember, adab, sunnah, then tradition, and then finally, awe. Or it can mean religion. Sometimes, occasionally, now and again, every 18th Sunday in the year, it means religion. The rest of the time, it is power to enslave, subjugate, dominate, and humiliate. Adam, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thoughts are based on the Quran. Quran chapter number 49, verse number 14. It says to the Arabs, it says, Qalati al-Arabu. The Arab says, Amanna, we believe. Say that you have not believed. Say that you have not believed. But say that Kulu aslamna, we have submitted. We have submitted. Quran chapter number 49, verse number 14. So no matter whether you believe or not, whether you believe Muhammad or Allah, doesn't matter. Believe is not required. What is required is that you have to fully submit, and that goes by your definition that you just showed, that it is clear cut that the Deen-e-Islam or Deenul Haq is all about fully submitting to Allah and His Messenger. And it says in the rest part of the verse that obey Allah and Muhammad. Allah and Muhammad. Everywhere in the Quran you will see Allah and Muhammad or obey Muhammad and obey Allah. So vice versa, it has used in both ways. Obey Allah and Muhammad or obey Muhammad and Allah. So this is the obedience and submission to Allah and Muhammad for whatever they have said without question. 5, chapter number 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 101. Without questioning, fully submitting.
Right. So, guys, I'll open it to the floor at this point. If anyone has any comments or questions, Harry, your thoughts before I'll open it up here. There's more, but I'm not going to go. I don't want to go into the rest of my notes. They're not edited yet, as I said, so I would rather leave that for another time. But I think we've actually covered quite sufficiently. We've given plenty, so I don't know that it's necessary to do that. But Deen, take this away. Islam is not a religion. It's 1%, 2% a religion. It is a political and legal system based on dominance and subjugation, utilizing force. It is Machiavellian. So I'll leave it up to you guys.
Thank you for an amazing presentation. The both of you are how can I say it? God bless you both. Um,
Thank you.
and I'm very thankful. I know you spent days and endless amount of hours to put that together. I appreciate that so much. Really, you know how I feel about your work. I think we have a few more questions if you allow that.
Sure, sure. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Athena, please go ahead.
Hi guys, hi Lloyd, and thanks for
Hi
your
there.
presentation. It's been really interesting. I came in a bit late, but it's really enlightening. Thank you. I've got a question. It doesn't pertain to the very last point you made. It was just a general question on um, how do Muslims reconcile trust within each other? Do they just leave it that if someone's made a decision to lie because you reconcile that with your own conversation with Allah, or how does that work within communities together? Because obviously, from a Western viewpoint, I just can't imagine how you trust each other. So
I
yeah, can you
would, yeah,
explain?
I would leave that to Adam. But what I will say before, because Adam is an ex-Muslim, I am not. I will state though that
Sorry.
Western cultures, we are okay. Muslims come from many cultures. Third world cultures are honor cultures, right? So they can lie to save face, whereas we are dignity cultures. There are different kinds of cultures. They are incompatible, but also Islam is a low trust culture. We are a high trust culture. Understand? So this, unfortunately, you cannot have a modern high trust culture. So therefore, you have repression and violence to enforce the law versus cooperation, willful cooperation of a population. That's why anytime that you head into this whole Deen sort of thing, you're going to get repression because you're heading into a low trust culture. But Adam, I'll let you answer that. How do Muslims deal with the issue of thinking that everyone is lying to them and having to lie to everyone?
They follow the sunnah, and the sunnah says simple: when two of you make a settlement about anything, write it down with two witnesses, two male witnesses. So even when you are going for an engagement, let's say the two people actually, the families come and meet and they decide on a date. Hey, let's marry the kids on that day. So they will actually have a piece of paper in which they write it down, and then two witnesses sign it. So it will become a paper document. So in the Islamic countries, you will see that happening very often, unless they are very old friends. The parents are known to each other for a very long time, and they will not do that. But other than that, they will write almost everything, because that's what Muhammad said. Because otherwise, I don't care what I said. You know what I mean?
Wow,
And that's
it's
not
just
cultural.
scary.
That's the sunnah of Muhammad. He said that when two of you make a decision, write it down with two witnesses.
Did not know that. Man, incredible. Does that answer your question, Athena?
It kind of does. It just sort of it doesn't really answer how, like,
Look, it's
say
considered
you and your
normal. It's,
sister.
you remember, you've been indoctrinated. It's normal. This is considered normal. That level of distrust. This is why Islam has this heavy-handed Sharia law, which utilizes violence. In fact, okay, there's a doctrine within Islam called commanding the right and forbidding the wrong, which makes sure that obedience to the law is enforced, because violence is the result. So actually, let me actually show you how they will enforce this. Okay, so this is section Q, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong, page 713. So I'm going to go there and show you how they make sure that things follow well. I'm going to go page
So
713.
while you
Yeah,
are going there, let me just answer
yeah,
that more.
go for
Like
it.
in West, when I found in West, and I came to the West, and I realized I I bought something from a shop. I came back, and there was something which was not inside the equipment that I bought. It had missing item inside it. And in my part of the country, they will not accept my words. They will simply not. Hey, you bought it from here. It was packed. You went home. We don't care. You took it and you kept it. So somehow I was like, okay, I had the same mindset. And I was like, whatever. I have to buy that part, or I'll have to buy the whole thing. And I was telling my neighbor. And he's like, why? Just go take it back. Tell them that it has a missing part. I was like, they're gonna honor that? Why not? Just go. And I went there and I showed them, hey, it has a missing part. The lady on the counter did not ask me a second question. Did not ask me a second question. She just took it back and gave me the money. And I was like, what the, where am I? Am I still on Earth, the planet Earth? I had never known this kind of a culture. You know, it's just beyond me to comprehend this culture. So I hope that would answer your question. You guys are you guys, you guys are living in a different kind of a environment and culture which is unknown to the Muslim world.
Right.
Could I
Um,
add in? Could I add in a little bit of anecdotal? I know of at least half a dozen building contractors who've done work for Muslims, but at the end of it have not been paid what they're due. And I've watched, some of these situations have become quite nasty. I've experienced it myself as well. And what I've learned from people close to their community is that none of them trust each other. It's all quite nasty, almost gangster style in terms of the groups within Islam.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is very, very true.
And that
Um,
in most of the countries like ours, they will tell you at least a 50% margin, and they will take the money in parts and they will not finish the job until they have taken at least 80% of the money, and they know that they will never get the last 20%, and they know that they already had an over margin of the 20% because they will not get the 20%, and so on and so forth. So very normal. You
I
guys
might
don't
have
know.
I might have missed it, but where did you say, what country are you from, Adam, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm from Pakistan.
Oh, okay, cool.
okay. Yeah. No, thanks, Adam. Man, this thing, you're teaching me things now that I didn't know from my discussions with you in the past. I was not aware. So also, I want you to note here, Athena, you asked me this question. So the main doctrine within Islam is called commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. I'll skip the Arabic on that. And this applies to whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Muslims must do it to each other as well as to non-Muslims around them. So obviously you have to have knowledge of the wrong act. And we've discussed the knowledge of the wrong act. We've discussed the law about that. Then you have to explain to someone that something is wrong, right? This is where you would use nice words. You would be reasonably polite, right? You'd say, hey, that's wrong. You speak up. And then forbidding the act verbally, generally they say here, you've got to be polite. Then you must censure with harsh words. In other words, verbal abuse is now allowed. You're allowed to be verbally abusive. This is where the F yous and F your mothers will now be permissible. You're allowed to do this. It is righteous. It is good. It is normal. Then they speak of righting the wrong by hand. Now, if you're a wife beater, how would you think that you right the wrong by hand? You
Slapping
work
the
that out.
lady.
Correct. You smash things, and you might want to hand out a few warm slaps. Notice that intimidation comes after righting the wrong by hand. And notice the religion of peace then teaches the next step after intimidation. After you slap them and they didn't listen, then you threaten them. So slap first, threaten later, and you threaten them with assault. And if assault doesn't work, and assault here implies weapons, and if assault fails to work, and righting the wrong also implies you smash things. You break their wine bottles, you smash their musical instruments, you you rip their clothing. Understand? It means the destruction of the things that are offensive. Then comes assault, utilizing weapons. And if you, as a person alone, are not threatening enough, they will then tell you the next step is to get some friends, which is called a gang, and then go and threaten that person. And if that is not sufficient, get weapons, force of arms, because Islam is the religion of peace. And it teaches in the Sharia that peace is maintained through assault and force of arms. Does that clarify, Athena?
Yes, it does. It does. Obviously, being indoctrinated as a Western person, it seems utterly Mad.
It is totally insane. It makes perfect sense. Believe me, it's incredibly crazy, but it makes perfect sense when you understand it. It's entirely logical. It's
Um,
completely insane, but entirely logical.
But you need to also understand what does munkar means, because if you go to the Arabic, brother, it's
Yeah.
the translation of the Arabic. If you go to the start where it says the Arabic, I saw the chapter, it says munkar, if I'm not mistaken. The heading of the chapter.
Hmm.
Okay, so
That's just above
munkar,
here.
yeah, yes. Al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. Kitabul al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar. The
Mhm.
one who commands the ma'ruf, the right things, and nahi anil munkar, munkar. Munkar is a very, very generic word, you know. It is so generic that you can drive anything out of it. In the
Mhm.
sunnahs, there are multiple sunnahs. Munkar is man ra'i al munkar, the one who denies. Who? Munkar, the one who
Ghazali
denies,
again.
right? Allah and Muhammad,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Allah and Muhammad, and their teaching. So all the wrongs are only the wrongs which are pronounced as wrong according to Sunnah of Muhammad, according to Muhammad, and according to Allah, right? So munkar are the things which are wrong according to Quran and Hadith and its exegetes.
Mhm.
So to understand that, we can read the Sunnah of Sunan Nisai 5008, and there are multiple on the same subject. It says man ra'i al munkar. That Messenger of Allah says, whosoever among you sees a munkar, you can translate it as evil, you can translate it as the munkar deen, like the rejecter of deen, the rejecter of Muhammad and Allah. Depending on which context you are taking, it's very general, right? Let him change it with his hand. Now there comes
Yes.
the jihad bil yadai, your hand. Change it with your hand, and if you cannot change it with your tongue. So abuse
Mhm.
him, call him names, etc., etc. And if you can't even do that, then you do it by your heart, which is the weakest
Well,
of the
that's
faith. And I told you already that these are the basic three types of
yeah.
jihad: jihad bil lisan, jihad bil yadai, and jihad bil nafs. So
Yeah.
these translations cannot encapsulate the true meaning of munkar. It's the English English translations cannot encapsulate that, and
Yeah.
that's why you are showing these references on screen as well while I was talking. So thank you, brother. You, when it comes to Sharia and fiqh, man, I have not seen anybody who have this kind of a knowledge other than you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Praise Lord for
Appreciate it.
that.
Thanks.
I'd
I
just
know.
like to ask Lloyd, if I may. There's a chap in here I'd be very interested to hear from. Sherlock. We've been speaking to him quite regularly, and he seems like a very reasonable young man. And I just wondered if Sherlock, if you had any questions for Lloyd or for Adam.
All right.
1 second. Yes, Sherlock, go ahead.
No, thanks. I have no question.
Okay.
You said enough. Thanks. Anyway.
Thank
No
you.
So
worries.
I
so
have
just to briefly to then go through the Sharia, the Islamic law on this. Commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. Again, this analysis within the Sharia, the accepted scholar on this issue of what it means to command the right and forbid the wrong is by Imam Ghazali, once again. And it states that the doctrine of commanding the right and forbidding the wrong is the most important doctrine in Islam. If it were not done, Islam would vanish. So it is through the use of this violence, this escalating ladder of violence, that Islam maintains its hold on people, and otherwise it would vanish. Understand? It admits it here. But you must understand that this stepwise that you've seen here, these steps that you notice here, that I showed, the degrees of
Brother, I'm
severity,
sorry.
how,
I'm
yeah,
so
go
sorry,
on.
brother. I'm so sorry. Go back to the same
Yeah.
point that you were showing. I want to show everyone what I was talking about. Go back to the same
Um,
point that we were showing right now, the paragraph.
with Ghazali, command the
Yes, yes,
obligation, which one?
yes. That same paragraph of the Ghazali. I'm
Uh,
sorry.
let me just, yeah, here it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kadama says, yeah, that's it.
So now, right after the red line, read it. And is the mission that Allah sent the prophets to fulfill. You know, so this munkar, right? If you read the Arabic, anil munkar, right? So you need to understand there is nothing wrong if it is not pronounced as wrong according to the Prophet of Islam and Allah. This doctrine that most of our non-Muslim brothers and sisters forget to include in that line. This you need to understand that if it is not going against the Allah and His Messenger, it's not even wrong, no matter how wrong you call it, right?
Hmm.
No matter how. So marrying a 9 years old is not wrong. It's pedophilia according to the West, but it is not wrong because it doesn't go against Allah and Muhammad. Okay, having sex with slave girls is bad, it's rape, but it's not wrong because Allah and Messenger allowed it and to called it to be right, right? So having four wives nowadays in the West is wrong, but in Islam it is not. It's totally legal and allowed because Allah and Messenger did not call it
Yeah.
wrong. So pedophilia is not wrong. So how can you just simply say munkar as being wrong? No, 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 no. Munkar is the thing which Allah and His Prophet called wrong. That's the most important point to always remember.
The Sharia makes that clear that only what is told to be wrong in the Sharia is wrong. Everything else is fine. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
I can go to that reference. In fact, it's A1.4. Correct.
Almost like a free for all then.
To some degree, yes, because everything has its opposite. Everything has its violation, its legal violation. And notice that these steps here, Q5.3 to Q5.9, you don't have to go in this sequence. You can go from explaining and then killing someone. You can go straight from 5.3, jump over the rest, and end at 5.9 because, hey, what the hell? Okay, you do not have to follow the steps. The steps are a mild suggestion. If you want to go from not saying a damn thing and just slapping the living daylights out of someone, that's fine. The steps are just a mild suggestion. You can go straight to number 9 right here and skip over 3 to 8 if you want. Understand, you don't have to follow the steps. You will find them generally following the steps, but that's just a suggestion. And also, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong is the most important doctrine of Islam. Everything is a subset of that doctrine. Everything's a subset. Jihad's a subset of Nahi al Munkar. Okay? So let there be a group of you called to good, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. Those are the successful. Those are the ones who are strict. That's those small minority of extremists. That's who they are referring to. Those are the good ones who are the successful Muslims. If enough people do it, okay, meaning whenever a wrong is seen, one of those who sees it corrects it, the responsibility is lifted from the rest. Now, when they say responsibility, it means the rest of the Muslims are free from having to do this because there's a group of committed Muslims who are strict, who will do it, and the crime of non-commission will fall from them and their souls are saved because they will not go to hell because they've allowed this evil to pass. So, yeah. And notice that hating with your heart is the weakest degree of faith. If you are strong, you will change it with your hand. With your hand could also hold a gun as you change it or hold a knife as you change things. So understand these are very broad definitions. They are very loose. They're very subjective in many cases. And if they don't do it, Allah will ignore the Muslims and the worst will be put in charge, and Allah will ignore the Muslims, they will all fall into hell. Because Allah threatens the Muslims and they are all on the verge of a sweeping punishment. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Adam, any thoughts from you? Any more questions? I'd love to take more
Brother,
questions if there
can
are.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, before
Hmm?
before that question, open 434, please, if possible. I want to show
Quran
something.
434.
Good.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to show the deception, and I'll show how you can skip the things. So 434 it says, and go to the last part, and it says, Allah leave them, but those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally strike them. Now, this is the most stupid, idiotic translation ever in the history of stupid, idiotic translation. Okay. So now, can you please go to Quran.com/4/34? I'll show you what happens there because it doesn't say Arabic over here. So Quran.com/4/34. So in here, if you move your mouse over Adrubuhunna,
Mm.
can you read Arabic? Adrubuhunna?
No, I cannot.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, brother. Let me show you. Let me show.
You do it. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Share screen. All right, guys. I hope you can see that. Okay, so it says adrabuhunna. So the word wow, zabar, wow, always go for and. It's not summa. Sum means then. So wa ahjaruhunna, wow, and forsake them. Fi. So okay, sorry, wait. mm, So from the bed, right? But like first you advise them. Fa izuhunna, advise them, then and not then wow and forsake them. See, if you move your mouse over, it also shows you and, but if you go to the English translation, then if they persist, forsake them.
Wow.
They don't even say and, but if you move your mouse over there, because it says va, which means and, from forsake them from your bed and strike them. So now if you go to the Qurtubi, it shows you clearly that these are not three distinctive 1 2 3 steps. No, they are not. The Qurtubi clearly says you can go directly to strike, to beat, but don't beat her in such a way that she'll bleed or her bone will break. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Don't break her bone. Don't make her bleed. Don't do that. Otherwise, strike her. Strike your wife because you have feared disobedience from her, because you fear disobedience from her. Then yeah,
We have a
forsake her.
question, guys. We have a question, if
Sure.
that's okay
Sorry,
to.
brother.
No, not at all. I'm just trying to find the chat because the chat keeps moving. So
Magic after dark. It's magic
there we
after
go.
dark. He's on
Magic
listing.
after
No,
dark.
no,
There you
but
go, buddy.
one second. But one second, please. But before we have Eternal, who was waiting patiently. So
Okay,
What,
put them on
I'm
now.
sorry, I didn't see that. I apologize.
Eternal, go first, please.
Yeah, sorry, the chat moved forward a little bit. I wanted to ask about earlier statements about the lying. For me, I'm a bit slightly confused. I want to know where you're coming from. The message that the presentation you're giving in this case is a information I would say is a slightly niche. Would you not say, or would you say that?
No, I wouldn't.
the
You're
entire-
saying that
Would you then say also
from
perhaps
the finest scholar in all of Islam, from the Islamic law, the Sharia. That's not niche. That's mainstream. That's ijma. That is the consensus of the scholars, the agreement of all of the Islamic scholars on the fundamental interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah.
I'm not disagreeing what you're saying. What I'm saying is it institutional and generalized across the populace of Islam that inherently they are liars, or they inherently go about life as a liar?
I've
Is that
stated
how
that
it
the
seems like?
doctrine permits lying. What Muslims do is whatever Muslims do. The doctrine explicitly makes lying obligatory. That is what the doctrine teaches. That is what the Quran, the Sunnah, and the ijma of the scholars in the Islamic law, in the fiqh and the Sharia, it explicitly obligates Muslims to lie. It is not an option. Now, what Muslims do is we don't know that. However, it certainly is not a sin, and it is not only permissible but obligatory. So this Islam is based then on lying out of necessity for any and all reasons that they think of.
I think his question can be answered in a different way. If a Muslim does not know his own religion, like you can say there are a lot of Christians who are Christians by just
Yeah.
born in a Christian family, and they do not know their religion, and they go to church in maybe Christmas or maybe Easter, and that's also a maybe. Would you call them Christians? So now, same is the case as a Muslim who has not studied his Quran just a little bit. Even he doesn't even go to the mosque to see what the scholar is teaching him, so he doesn't know that, and he is in the West and he's listening to the nice things of the West and knowing the nice things of the West, and he does not do these things. Will you call him a hypocrite, or will you call him a true Muslim? So when you talk about a true Muslim, that's what he will do with you. Now there are Muslims who are hypocrites or unknown about their religion. That's altogether a separate thing.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks for that, Adam. Yeah.
Let's say
Look, we're not here to discuss Muslims individually. We don't know what's in their hearts and what's their actions. Those are for them to decide. But we are discussing the doctrine, and this is the Islamic doctrine. There is no doctrine of truth, not the way that we understand it. And the doctrine of lying overwhelms completely the doctrine of supposedly telling truth according to Western morals. Yes, Harry?
Okay. Magic After Dark. Can you go ahead, please?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to give my point of view or something and maybe see if you can add to it. I'm 28 years old, live in East London. A lot of Muslim people that I know of my generation, they're living conflicted lives because when they've been brought up and their brain has been conditioned to love their religion and love their God, but their heart and soul is not in it, because when they're out of the house and away from their parents, they're living the Western lifestyle. And when they're at home, they're under the rules of their parents. And because they lie to their parents every day, they find it so easy to lie to everybody else. But it just goes back to what Adam said. I don't think a lot of them know their religion, but they're just conditioned into it and end up living a conflicted life. But that's just a point of view of my generation. But you just said we're not here to discuss individuals, so it's probably irrelevant. But I just wanted to see if you
No,
can
no,
add to that.
it is an issue. But see, the issue is that, okay, in the Middle East, when I lived in the Middle East, I dated Middle Eastern women, and they lived dual lives. They were terrified of being caught by their families for the fact that they would go clubbing, they'd drink, they would do things that were illegal and under Islamic law would get them killed. If they lived in Syria, if they were in Palestine, they'd die. They would be killed, right? If they were in Egypt, their families in Pakistan, wherever, their families would kill them for that. However, on that point, gosh, I just lost my thread now. You know what? I lost my thread for some reason. I had an important point. Oh, sorry. The only way for them to redeem themselves, and males tend to follow this route, when you've sinned and you feel eventually sinful, eventually some family member takes you aside and says, look, you're living a wrong life. You need to repent, except Islam does not have the same concept of repentance and forgiveness because it is not about sin. It's a crime. You've committed crimes, right? And the only way that a Muslim can gain righteousness is by commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. Only then. And unfortunately, the only way to wipe your slate clean, the only guaranteed way for a Muslim to wipe his slate clean is by committing jihad. That is to kill and be killed for Allah. So therefore, these Muslims then become targets for imams who want to utilize them to perform jihad. So they are doing it as righteousness so that they can wipe the slate clean of sin. And of course, they're told that, well, if you do this, you will not only wipe your own sin, but you will then be able to intercede on behalf of 72 of your family members, and they will be guaranteed paradise. So your sin can be turned into not only a benefit for you, but a benefit for your family. And so they are utilized. The ideology then forces them, often manipulates them into becoming jihadis. So there's a problem there.
Thank you very much. You provided so much clarity on a lot of people that I grew up with in class as friends, and I'll definitely be passing this recording on. God bless.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, guys?
I just want to add something to that. The word 72, which Lloyd said, he actually read it and he said it as is. When you speak with a Muslim, they will denounce that. So use the word kasira, many, generation, because the Islamic consensus is that the word number 72 is representing kasir, means many, and not the literal 72. So
Okay.
it's like a hyperbole. I'm you know the word, right?
Hyperbole,
What I'm saying?
hyperbole,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's like that. So when you say, Muslims, they will actually nitpick your words, and they will raise question on the nitpick and leave the major part of it. So that's why I'm repeating it, so that everyone would know on that.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, guys, as you know, Adam is an expert on the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah, far better than I am. So yeah, and also don't forget that unfortunately, when you read through the Sunnah, there are certain subtle deceptions. There are certain I can pick up many of them, most of them I think within the Sharia documents. When you cross-reference, double check, triple check, there are typos certainly that look legitimate, and there are also edits that alter the meaning, and there are things that are removed and things that are added, things that are not in the original and things that are removed out of embarrassment. So understand that you need to also read this with an understanding that there are some things where they've fudged the documentation, and thus you need to be careful.
Okay, James, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of two things really. Firstly, Lloyd, I just wanted to ask you if you have anything to say on the story that Muslims peddle, really, is what I would say, about Jesus not dying on the cross.
They've got numerous. If you read their scholars, I can actually do a presentation on that. In fact, I can do a presentation on that in depth, It's a Gnostic concept because Islam is a Gnostic religion. It is an explicitly Gnostic religion. Most of its concepts taken from Manichaeism. But if you read the Islamic scholars, they all have totally contradictory views on what happened at the ascension, right? So, and the whole crucifixion and the ascension and so on, they are all contradictory, but they all deny it, just as the Gnostics do. In fact, they're paraphrases mostly of various Gnostic ideas from the Gospel of Peter, from the Manichaean doctrines. It's all over the place.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, the story just sounds so bizarre. Like the couple of stories that I've heard that God changed Jesus with someone from the crowd, and just because a Muslim literally said because everyone had beards and headdresses, no one noticed. Like
I'm sorry,
just
brother.
don't know. Literally, but
I
that's
can read you.
Yeah, let me
take that. I'm going to find something.
yeah,
Go on.
I'll add some point to that. So basically, Quran is very, very, very vague on that subject. Quran says, "Wama qatalu wama solabu walakin lashubhi lahu." So they killed him not, nor did they crucify him, but we made to appear like that to them. Shubhi lahum. So now this particular word, this particular sentence is very, very vague. That's what Quran is saying. Quran doesn't say anything more than that. It doesn't give you any story. This is Quran chapter number 4, verse number 157. They neither killed him nor crucified him, but we made to appear like to them, or we create a shubha, or we create a doubt for them, however we like to translate it. Now,
Right.
Ibn Kathir gives a story. In that story,
I've got it up on the screen.
Judas was made to look like him. And there was a guy Judas who was pretty young, and he used to say, "Hey, Jesus, make me look like you. Make me look like you." And Jesus said, "Nobody else, nobody else, nobody else. Okay, Allah, make him look like me." And then Jesus went off, and that guy was crucified. You look at Qurtubi, there are other stories. You look at Tibri,
There's
there are other
numerous.
stories.
I can go through them. I've
Right?
actually got them up. I've got the presentation up. Yeah. So for 157, for instance, they state here, he mentions Tafsir Ibn Kathir, right? He says, Jesus used to make the shape of a bird from clay and blow in it, and became a bird by Allah's leave and flew. Now, this is taken from two sources, the Arabic Infancy Gospel of Thomas and the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. So these are Gnostic tales that are well known from, I think, the 3rd or 4th century, which Islam simply just copies word for word, verbatim. And of course, it states here that Allah made the young man look exactly like Isa. Remember, not Jesus, Isa. The earliest New Testament gospel in Arabic, the earliest Arabic gospel, okay, which was found in Egypt, I think, which dates to the 8th century, 9th century. It has Yeshua, not Isa, but all of the Islamic texts have Isa and not Yeshua, which is very interesting. But then, of course, you've got this whole story. Then you've got different stories by Tafsir al-Badawi. A group of Jews cursed Christ and his mother. He invoked evil on them, and then he turned the Jews into monkeys and swine. And then Jesus says, "Who would like to have my likeness cast on him and be killed and crucified and then enter paradise?" And one of them volunteered. And then he was cast with Christ's likeness. He was then arrested, crucified, and killed. It is also said that the crucified one was a traitor who went with the mob to guide them to Christ. So now you've got two different stories from the same author, so he doesn't know which one. Okay. Then you've got Qurtubi. While explaining the words of the Quran, they were deluded by resemblance. So Dahak says, it so transpired that following the intention of the Jews to kill Sayyidina Isa, his disciples assembled. It was then Iblis, evil, the devil, who gave the address of Isa to the execution squad. 4,000 men surrounded the house. Okay, according to Qurtubi, Isa said, "Is one of you willing to go out and be killed and then be in paradise with me?" One of them offered to do so. Isa gave him his shirt and head cover. Then his resemblance of Jesus was cast on him. And then the Jews, believing him to be Jesus, caught him and crucified him. And it goes on. According to some reports, they'd said, so if you go through these crossifictions that I've got here, there's a ton of different stories. The Muslims have story after story after story. And it's all taken word for word from Gnostic traditions, and none of the scholars can agree. Does that answer your question, James? I can do a full show on this another time. I've got all the notes on this one.
Yeah, James, you can respond. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. No, that was really interesting. I didn't realize there were multiple stories.
Yeah, they are.
The other thing, kind of in addition to that whole subject, I wanted to ask you, like, how do Muslims, presumably, I mean, I've never heard anyone address it at all, but you've got a lot of experience. How have you ever heard people, Muslims, addressing the fact that Jesus apparently didn't die, yet they also, you know, they seem to kind of acknowledge him on the surface, don't they? They call him the Messiah, and they say he's coming back and all this stuff.
That's propaganda,
how does,
because Jesus is the Messiah who speaks of the coming of Muhammad. Jesus is the Messiah. Muhammad is the King Messiah.
Let
Muhammad
me add to that point.
Go on, yeah, go on.
Yeah, let me add to that point. So when you say Messiah, Messiah is in Quran as well. It says that Isa is Christ, Messiah. His name is Messiah. But can you ask a Muslim what does Masih means? Can you actually try to ask what does Masih means? Right? When you ask them what Masih means, they will not be able to give an answer because none of their scholars were able to give the answer. If you look at Tafsir al-Qurtubi, it gives you 8 different narratives that who Isa was, or what does Messiah means. They don't know. They say Messiah is the guy who Masah, who touches people and heals them. That's why he was called Messiah. Messiah because he used to walk to different areas. That's why he was called Messiah. Messiah means, like, so they have like 8 different narratives in Qurtubi, and there are so many different narratives in other tafsir of Islam. They don't even know what Messiah means. So you are coming to a Muslim from the perspective and clear knowledge of what does Christ means, what does Masih means, what does Messiah means. You need to understand Muslim doesn't know what Messiah means. So how can you come and say, hey, it is clear that he is Messiah? You are taking your knowledge to them without knowing what they believe in. So he
right.
used to touch people. He used to give masa means touch to the people, and people would heal. So that's why he's called Messiah. What can you do about that translation? It is one of the translation of the Qurtubi. You need to guys understand what they think before you put this kind of a question on the Muslims. You need to first teach them.
Right. Yeah, within the Islamic tradition, so what you've got is Muhammad is the Shiloh, who is foretold in Genesis 49, verse 1. But the Shiloh is the one who will have the scepter of power at the day of resurrection, at the final day of judgment. So Muhammad is the Shiloh, right? He will be given, and Jesus's job was to foretell the coming, just like John the Baptist foretold Jesus. Jesus foretold the coming of Muhammad. Now, this is a modern commentary on this. So they speak of that Muhammad is recognized, and so that Muhammad is recognized, he's identified with the Messiah, but because Jesus is the Messiah, Muhammad then becomes the King Messiah. Okay, and they speak here of that he's under the name Shiloh, and I need to actually go see the Prophet Muhammad is the King Messiah from the lineage of Ishmael. So in other words, Jesus is the Messiah, which is just basically a messenger who is telling you, oh, by the way, there's the dude is coming. The dude is called Mo, and he's coming, and the King Messiah. So therefore, he had there to one up Jesus, and therefore they say here that he's the Shiloh from Genesis 49, 1 to 10.
This is a very modern translation. I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
When was this written?
Yeah, but it's very much. This is fairly recent, 92. This is fairly recent, like a few years old, but it's based.
This is,
but I've read some of the older works, and it's pretty much saying what they say. It's just a modern, updated version of it.
Yeah, they in the sorry,
Sorry.
brother. In the early ones, they don't use the King Messiah word. They do not use the King Messiah word for Muhammad because Muhammad is used in a different way. Because you know, when Muslims after Adhan, they pray a prayer. Allahumma rabbaha bi dawati tama wa salatul qaima. آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي واتبرزت الشفاعة يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. Oh Allah, raise Muhammad to the highest maqam in the Jannah so that he could intercede for us. Yes, Muhammad will become the intercessor, but they do not use the word Messiah or Messiah for Muhammad himself in the early scriptures, and that's why this prayer is being prayed till now, that Muhammad should get it. So they pray for Allah,
No,
hey
so
Allah,
these guys
fulfill your
are.
promise.
So these guys are repurposing from the Jewish text, from the Talmud and others, and they're calling Muhammad the Messiah King right here. So,
Yeah,
so I
because
mean,
that's
these
in
guys are going all out. Yeah.
that's in Shobat. I think that's how you pronounce it. Shobat or Shobat. The the
Chabad,
exegesis Chabad, the
Chabad, yeah.
exegesis of
Yeah.
Psalms and other
Yeah.
verses where they use the King Messiah word, and they are trying to say that it's Muhammad. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No,
a very
that's
latest notion.
yeah, that's very new, but it's basically it's in keeping with all this stuff. Does that answer your question, James?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Dave the Pond wants to ask a question, but there was like a continuation just on from that whole Messiah thing, which is, it is true, or is it not? Can you furnish me with more knowledge on the fact that Muslims, Islam, they are waiting for the return of Christ, but they're not waiting for the return of Muhammad?
No, he's coming as well. Christ is going to come back at the right hand of Muhammad. He's going to pray behind Muhammad. So Christ will come back fighting the Christians and the Jews, killing the Christians and the Jews who refuse to submit to Islam. And then after he destroys the church, Jesus will destroy the church, kill the pigs, and then everybody will become Muslim, and then Jesus will marry, have kids, and die. Because you must understand the role of... Yeah, go on, Adam.
But that's not Muhammad. That's Mahdi. Jesus will work with Mahdi, who is the Imam of Muhammad. So
Okay.
that's the narrative. Sorry, before some Muslim will come up and say, "Hey, Lloyd lied," it's Mahdi. Mahdi is one of the Imam who will come. Jesus will pray behind Imam Mahdi, and he will destroy the Dajjal al-Masih. So in the Arabic, it does say Dajjal al-Masih. Dajjal means simply a lying Messiah. So
Yeah, the
Antichrist.
Jesus
So
of Christianity is the evil Jesus, and the Isa is the good Jesus.
Yeah, the good Jesus will kill the Dajjal al-Masih, who will... Yeah, so that's it's all full of bull crap. I'm sorry. I know
Yeah.
what I have read. I know what I believed
Yeah,
in. Yeah.
the last, you see, Muhammad, people don't understand the role of Muhammad in Islam once you look outside of the regular sources. So it says here that Muhammad was created from a ray of light taken from the splendor of Allah's own body long before the creation of the world. Okay, Allah took a ray of light from the splendor of his own glory and united it to the body of Muhammad. And he said to Muhammad, "You are the elect, the chosen." And the first thing which Allah created was Muhammad's light and spirit. So Muhammad was created of divine light. And then Allah created Adam from the light of Muhammad and from the light of... And not only is Adam formed from Muhammad's light, but all the universe participates in the emanation, a Gnostic concept of light. The light of the prophets is from Muhammad's light. So all the prophets are made out of the light of Muhammad. The holiness of all the prophets, their ability to work miracles and their light of holiness is the light of Muhammad that is within them, that Allah placed within them. So the Holy Spirit is Muhammad. Muhammad is the firstborn of creation. In fact, Muhammad was with Allah at the beginning, and Muhammad is worshipped in paradise long before the earth was created. So people don't understand that the light of Muhammad was praised for 100,000 years, and then all of you worshipped Muhammad long before your soul left heaven to come to earth. So the question was?
Okay, last question or comment by Dave, please.
Hi, Lloyd. Just wanted to say a really deep, big thank you to you and Adam. But
thank you, brother.
Is it true that the name Muhammad is actually a title rather than the
It
real
is,
name?
yeah. The praised one, basically. It could be Jesus, to be honest. If you say the praised one, do you mean Allah or do you mean Muhammad?
And by the way, all the verses where the Muhammad is mentioned, that Muhammad is not the father of anyone. If you check it out closely, you will see it's in past tense. So it's in past tense. So if these verses were being revealed while Muhammad was here, why are they in past tense? I will do a live stream with you, Lloyd, on this one. We'll do a live stream on my channel on this one.
Yeah, it is
I so
interesting.
wanted
No,
to
I
it.
learned a lot tonight. I mean, I've learned a lot as well, things I didn't know, some from the Sunnah. So that's very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's me basically done, guys. It's midnight here.
I just want 3 more minutes of Adam's time, if I may.
Sure, please go ahead.
Adam, let's pretend that the Muslims are no longer a minority in Europe, and they are able to have their way. How does life under Islam, because you are from Pakistan, so you obviously know how it feels and how it looks. How does life under Islam will be in Europe if they are the majority?
Uh, you will have everything according to the Sunnah and the Hadiths, Sunnah and the Quranic things. So in Pakistan, we have a law called 295C, the Act of Pakistan 295C and 285. So if anyone, as an agnostic or atheist, would say, I don't believe in Muhammad, Muhammad was a false prophet, that's a 3 years imprisonment. If he says Muhammad is a pedophile, that's a punishment till death. So you will be hanged till death. You cannot say anything wrong about Muhammad or any other prophet. So example, you say Jesus is Lord God. Now, for example, that's again a blasphemy, that you are using a holy personage of Islam and calling him more than what he is, and hence you have bare minimum 3 years imprisonment. Uh, that's the law of Pakistan, Act of Pakistan. You it means like there is no freedom of speech. There will be girls married to Muslims at a very young age, and the law cannot do jack. Anyone can convert your daughter or your son at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to Islam, and you cannot do jack. But anyone who wants to get out of Islam, they have to go to the court after they are adult, which is 18 plus, and they have to denounce Islam and say, I need to be a non-Muslim. Yet they will ask you certain question, and they will put you in such a trial where if you say something left, right, and not be very precise, you might say a blasphemy, so you will be put to jail for 3 years. And when you put to jail in 3 years, remember, in the US and the western part of the world, they do bad things to the people who are child molester. But in Pakistan and countries like that, they do bad things to the people who are blasphemer. So you see, that is a basic reality. There's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of religion, everything has to be according to Sharia. And yet Pakistan is not even 50% Sharia country. It's not even 50% Sharia country. It is maybe 20% Sharia country. And that's your life will be in essence. And yeah, any man can marry, he can have a wife at home, and he can go and have an affair with another girl and then just marry her, and the wife cannot do jack. She cannot, because in Islamic law, it does not requires the person to ask permission from her first wife to marry a second wife. It's not, by law it's not. The wife cannot divorce the husband as well. According to Islam, wife cannot divorce her husband. She can request for a divorce. She can say, may I please have the divorce? And the guy say, no, f off. And then she is effed off. She can't do anything. She'll just go to the court, and the court session will run for years. And during that time, she can't even marry anybody else, because she is already married, even though the guy is not living with her, and she is just not getting the divorce. She is requesting for the divorce. So, overall, I think if I have to describe it in just few words, this is what your life will be in a Muslim majority country.
Thank you very much. This is very important for us to know. I guess now more than ever, the Europeans are going to open their borders even wider to accept more of those nice, peaceful people. Or maybe not. Maybe you will learn something. Um, anyway, Lloyd, do you have anything else to say for tonight, or we will just meet again next Monday?
I
You
will
use the
say
word,
good
brother.
night, everyone. Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
you use the word niceful people, peaceful people. You know what Quran says? Quran says, do not go for peace when you are the uppermost. So
Hmm.
the Quranic doctrine actually is clear. Quran chapter number 47, verse number 35. It says, do not weaken and call for peace when you are superior and when you are the uppermost. Do not go for peace. So the peace is in Islam is only there when you are not superior, and that's what we have shown you already in different verses of the Quran and the Sikh. So don't call it a peaceful religion, brother. Like, please
No, no,
don't.
I was just sarcastic. I'm sorry. It was a joke.
Oh, sorry.
Uh, Yeah. Adam, you are always welcome to come back. Thank you very much for your input. God bless you.
Adam,
Very
thank
important
you very much.
information.
Yeah.
And Lloyd, as usual, this is the work of a hero in my eyes. I appreciate that a lot. I think all our admins are very happy about your dedication and time and kindness. So I will stop the recording now. Thank you for joining We Are the 99%, and we are part of the Resistance United family. And this Wednesday we have another event with William Gardner about what is truth, objective truth. You are all welcome to join. Thank you very much, and see you next
So
Monday,
thank you,
Lloyd.
guys. By the way, let me just show you Adam Seeker's channel so that you can find Adam Seeker on YouTube. This is Adam Seeker's channel on YouTube here. Right, this is Adam Seeker, so he has a very, very active YouTube channel, guys. So please give him some support. And this is my channel on YouTube here. So I discuss things from the perspective of Islamic law. So not opinion, but the final interpretation of Islam, which is the ijma, the consensus of the scholars, and how it is applied. So this is my channel, which discusses these issues in detail. So please look us up and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. God bless you both, and I will open the floor for free conversation.